Chapter 1147. The closing ceremony ended, and spaceships took off one after another, sending the audience out of the venue. Han Xiao got Sylvia to entertain the guests who came to support him, while he brought the officers and Black Star Guards to the heavy main ship hovering outside the atmosphere. All the players who caused trouble were temporarily locked up there, waiting to be dealt with. Swoosh! The hatch opened and Han Xiao walked in with a group of officers. He immediately saw the tense situation in the venue. The players locked up there were clearly divided into two groups. With Flying Free leading the majority, they surrounded the spy team led by East of Wolf Howl. "What's going on?" Herluz took 2 steps forward and asked. The warden hurriedly walked up and replied, "Your Excellency, they've been arguing since just now. It seems like there's an internal conflict." "A bunch of rebels actually have an internal conflict?" One of the Black Star Guards sneered. Although Flying Free had made a righteous speech during the ceremony, saying that he was doing this for the army, most of the officers did not believe him at all. They felt that this was just an excuse for the rebellion. Attacking the army commander in public and trying to ruin the ceremony was a sign of bad intentions. The officers of the army did not know the ins and outs of the situation like Han Xiao, so they would not be convinced with just a few words. Han Xiao knew what was going on, but he did not explain. He walked in front of everyone and did not say anything. He just looked at everyone with an expressionless face. Seeing that Black Star had arrived, the two groups stopped arguing and turned to look at Han Xiao. After Han Xiao's performance and the explanation of the Beyond Grade A, the loyal subjects led by Flying Free were already shaken. They were skeptical of their own guesses, but they had not completely dispelled their final doubts. They felt that this might be the army commander's performance to prove his identity. Therefore, at this moment, many people secretly turned on the recording function, wanting to record his face in private. If it was a completely different person from before, something would definitely be wrong. They would upload the recording to the forums to remind the other army players that they had not given up on exposing the Mecha Empire. Flying Free stepped out of the crowd and asked in a gentlemanly tone, "What are you going to do with us?" "Don't worry, I want to hear your explanation." Han Xiao's tone was neither light nor heavy as he spoke casually. "What's there to explain? We've already made our intentions clear," Flying Free shouted. Han Xiao's expression did not change as he said indifferently, "But even if this is just a misunderstanding, your actions will still lead to punishment. Have you thought about the consequences of doing this?" "Of course. Even so, you didn't hesitate to take the risk for me." "We're here for Black Star. As for whether you're the real deal, that doesn't count yet." Flying Free put his hands on his hip. At this moment, Hardaway said coldly, "Then how do you explain attacking the audience? Could it be that it's also for the Legion commander?" Flying Free's expression froze for a moment before a burst of anger surged within him. He turned around and glared at Winterwolf and the others as he shouted, "Our plan was only to expose the imposters. The ones who attacked the audience were not us. These people are not with us." Winterwolf pretended to be shocked. "What are you talking about? Isn't this the secret mission you gave us? Now you want to wash your hands clean? You're still spouting nonsense." Flying Free was furious. "I didn't even have such a plan. Why are you doing this? Tisk Tsk, you were the one who ordered us to do this, and now you're turning your back on us." Winterwolf did this on purpose to make the Black Star Corps feel that they were all on the same side. This way, they could push the blame of attacking the audience to Flying Free and the others. This way, they could reduce the Black Star Corps' trust in the Immortals. The two groups of players started arguing again. This group of guild spies had already communicated and insisted that they were on the same side. The loyal party felt that their motives had been tarnished and was about to explode with anger. Elegant and easygoing greetings kept pouring out of their mouths like a waterfall. If not for the restrainer stopping them, the scene would have turned into a full-on brawl. Seeing this scene, many army officers curled their lips, and had a look of disapproval. They felt that this was a futile attempt to clear their names. Hela turned to look at Han Xiao and said in a deep voice, "Black Star, there are more and more immortals in the army. I feel that it's time to strengthen our control and prevent this from happening again." Someone on the side agreed. "That's right. We've been too lenient on the immortals." Hearing the discussion of the army officers, Winterwolf's eyes flashed with joy. He felt that his plan had worked. However, at this moment, he suddenly saw Han Xiao look over with a half-smile on his face. "You're the leader of this group, right?" "Me?" Winterwolf's heart skipped a beat, but he pretended to be shocked. Han Xiao snapped his fingers, and the restrainers surrounded them again, restraining the hundreds of players who had tried to attack the audience. As for the other players, they were not affected. "I have video surveillance of everyone who tried to attack the guests. I won't catch any of you wrongly," Han Xiao said slowly. "Your punishment is to be locked in the spacetime amber. Don't even think about coming out again." "That's not fair," Winterwolf cried out and looked at the others. "We're on the same side. Why are you only arresting us?" Bullsh *T. Flying Free and the others were furious. "Stop arguing. I already know what's going on." Han Xiao waved his hand. Suddenly, his face turned serious. "When you were planning, someone had already tipped me off. In fact, I could have stopped you long ago, but I allowed you to act at the closing ceremony. Do you know why?" "So, you already knew?" Everyone's expression changed, but then they thought about it. It was normal for them to have traitors, so there was nothing strange about it. However, Black Star did not stop them in advance. This was intriguing. Everyone could not help but be curious. "I know a little about your motives. Actually, I don't believe that you would betray me." Han Xiao walked into the crowd, patted some people on the shoulder, and pulled Mad Blade and Maple Moon out of the crowd. He smiled and said, "You're all the core members of the army from the beginning. I remember all of you, especially you two. We've known each other for decades. Although we haven't been interacting much recently, I won't suspect you." Everyone was stunned, greatly surprised. They did not expect Black Star to say such words and remember them in his heart. All of a sudden, many people were touched, and they felt a sense of closeness. This was especially true for Mad Blade and Maple Moon. The two of them were stunned for a few seconds. Suddenly, excitement appeared on their faces, and an impulse to die for a friend surged in their hearts. Actually, seeing that the two of them also participated in the operation, Han Xiaoxin was also quite touched. The two of them were now pro players, and they were willing to take the risk to participate in this matter. Their relationship was really deep. But then again, if he was an imposter, he naturally would not be able to ban his account. Perhaps this was the reason why the two of them dared to take the risk. Looking at everyone's excited expression, Han Xiao smiled. He then turned to look at Winterwolf and the others, and his expression became cold and stern. "Ever since the expansion of the army, I knew that some spies from other organizations had sneaked in. The reason I didn't stop you was because I wanted to use your hands to lure out some of the unstable elements in the army. Now, it seems like it's working. I know very well whether you're a core member of the army or a spy, so don't try to fool me." Hearing this, Winterwolf's jaw dropped. His expression froze, and his face was filled with disbelief. Oh my God, he could see through this? Was it so hard to trick an NPC? Although they had already mentally prepared themselves for their accounts to be banned before the operation, they were all employees of various professional guilds, so they didn't feel bad about losing their account. But now that the plan had been seen through, it meant that their sacrifice was in vain. The plan had completely failed, and this was a huge loss. Not wanting to listen to the excuses of these guild spies, Han Xiao took out the spacetime amber and sealed the hundreds of people inside, turning them into lifelike specimens. Even if they went offline, their bodies would remain inside. Looking at this scene, Flying Free and the others were both touched and excited. Han Xiao did not deliberately explain, but the fact that he had taken out the spacetime amber, coupled with his performance, immediately changed the minds of Fly Free and the others. They basically believed that he was Black Star himself. One of the reasons was because of the universal treasure, but more of it was because Han Shao had used accurate judgment to help them clear their names and not put the blame on them. This made everyone feel very gratified. They felt a sense of satisfaction that their leader understood their intentions. As for you guys, Han Shao turned around and smiled. Then, his face turned serious. Although I believe you guys, rules are rules. Your actions have caused an impact, so there must be punishment. As punishment, you guys need to carry out some missions to make up for your mistakes, and the army discount you enjoy will be temporarily cancelled for 3 months. What do you think? That's what we should do. I have no objections. Flying Free waved his hand with a heroic expression. Everyone chimed in one after another. Although they were punished, their hearts were filled with joy. Compared to what Winter Wolf and the others had encountered, this punishment was nothing. The difference was too great. Han Shao waved his hands and dismissed the restrainers, allowing them to leave. After the players left, Herluz could not help but ask, Black Star, are you going to let it go just like that? Didn't I punish them? Han Shao raised his brows. What kind of punishment is that? It's as good as nothing. What if others see that the punishment is so light and follow suit? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Han Shao waved his hand and smiled. He knew that this group of players must have recorded it, and it would definitely be posted on the forum. His performance would not only make the players admire his judgment, but it would also increase the sense of identity of the faction. It was a method to win people's hearts. The punishment plan for Winter Wolf and the others was a warning. He could differentiate between friend and foe. If they were on his side, he would be lenient. However, if they tried to harm the army, he would not be merciful and give them a lifetime of amber. It's good that you have a plan. Hela nodded. She rarely questioned Han Zhao's actions. Since there was a result, she did not voice her opinion and deactivated the remote projection. As the crowd dispersed, Han Shao looked at the hundreds of amber specimens in the field and pondered. Winter Wolf, I remember this person. He seems to be a backbone of the northern battlefront. Looks like those guild alliances will still appear. The national war is about to begin. In his previous life, a large-scale national war broke out in version 4.0, also known as the First World Server War. However, although it was called a national war, it was not purely based on countries. That was because the gameplay in version 4.0 was mainly based on teamwork. As the version progressed, the scale of the players' teamwork increased. In the end, some professional guilds and solo guilds formed large guild alliances and official organizations. For example, the Northern Battlefront, Denland, September Conference, and so on, the North American and South American guilds, such as the Galactic Business Alliance, 5C Alliance, Plateau Eagle, and so on, and the Asian guilds such as the Southeast Alliance, Golden Alliance, Tropic of Cancer, and so on. These alliances were not purely based on countries. Different guilds in a country could belong to different alliances. Other than guilds, solo players would also join different alliances according to their preferences. In his previous life, there was no army, so the World Server War was not just targeted at one country. Everyone was tearing each other apart. However, this time, the Black Star Corps was too strong, so they were all enemies. The fuse of the national war was the faction leveling factor. The factions that the players belonged to started to transition to higher-level factions, such as the 3 Universal Civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance. The conflict between the two in the flickering world became one of the fuses of the national war. The source of the conflict between the 3 Universal Civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance was the issue of territory distribution. The intensity of the conflict would gradually increase. Of course, it was not a conflict between regular armies right from the start. Proxy wars were also an important part of it, and the Immortals were one of the proxies, fighting endlessly in the free competition zone. The national war is a good opportunity to harvest leek. However, because of the existence of the army, the direction this time will definitely change greatly. I wonder what will happen. Han Shao stroked his chin. At the same time, Flying Free and the others, who had left the cabin, excitedly posted the video on the forums. P.S. I've been attending the annual meeting for the past few days, so the updates have been a little unstable. After the annual meeting, I'll be back to normal. By the way, I recommend a book, All Villains Like Me, by Yunhai Qingmajian. I clearly wanted to be a hero in the game, so how did I end up walking further and further down the path of a villain? Why do all the villains like me? Chapter 1148. During the closing ceremony, Flying Free and the other loyalists took action. After that, almost all the army players stayed on the forums, concerned about the outcome of Flying Free and the others. In the eyes of many neutral players, these people were reckless and impulsive. Even if they did not die, they would at least lose a layer of skin. Who knew how severe the faction punishment would be? However, as soon as Fly Free and the others posted the private video, it immediately shocked many people. In an instant, it became a hot topic on the forums that tens of millions of people followed. The recording completely recorded all of Han Zhao's performance in the private meeting. Seeing the army commander's confident and handsome appearance, the atmosphere on the forums suddenly changed and became one-sided praise. Flying Free. From today onwards, the army commander is my big brother. Whoever dares to touch my big brother, I'll kill them. I'm done talking. Who agrees and who disagrees? I'm the Northern God's idiot. +1 are Ila's gaze. The army commander is too cool. It might be a little dirty. I'm Baki. Mecha Empire's spinner. Although most of the time, it's not too much to say that the army commander's performance today is awesome, right? Frog sees through everything. Logically speaking, the success rate of these spies trying to shift the blame should not be low. At the very least, the army should conduct a thorough investigation. I didn't expect Black Star's judgment to be so amazing. He saw through the difference between the two groups of spies and dealt with the matter accurately and decisively. The ones with ulterior motives were banned, while you loyal subjects only received a symbolic punishment. The army commander's actions are quite something. A sick name is idiot, as expected of the leader who has led the army for decades to reach this level. Brothers, I'm sorry. I can't go through the motions, I'm going to brag directly. The Legion commander is simply a man of great talent and bold vision, wise and brilliant, handsome and elegant, knowing how to make good use of people, good at dancing, unfulfilled ambitions, besieging Wei to rescue Zhao, secretly plotting in Chensong, captivating the birds and beasts, beautiful and gentle. Tomorrow won't be better. I didn't expect the army commander to still remember us old buddies who have followed him since version 1.0. My heart warms. Praise Black Star. Bun Hit Dog. I'm a newbie who just joined in this version. Is the army commander actually such a charming person? He's practically a rare man in Galaxy. I love him, I love him. I'm going to watch Bun Hit Dog's Black Star videos right now. I love Dawn. Dog, remember to use a SMUF account the next time you advertise as a newbie. The video was uploaded to the forums as expected by Han Shao. His goal of buying people's hearts was more than half achieved. This wave of actions was a combination of nostalgia, wisdom, and fair rewards and punishments. Not only did it give his image more of the so-called charisma of a leader, but it also increased the sense of faction identity of a large number of army players. This wave of feelings was enough to plant a seed in the hearts of many players, becoming another bond between them and the army. Although Han Shao did not deliberately explain his identity publicly, his few indirect actions had already washed away the players' doubts. At this time, The focus of the discussion on the forums was no longer whether Han Shao was real or not but why Black Star had the Mecha Empire's ability. All along, there had been rumors among the players that Black Star could copy and imitate the abilities of other characters in some way. Today, this rumor was finally confirmed. As the saying of a wuxia fan was widely accepted, Han Shao also happily received a new nickname, Galaxy Morong Fu Void Geomaji. A large number of players believed that this special talent of Black Star was the important reason for his rapid growth. Using battle to nurture battle, constantly stealing ultimate techniques from his opponents. In a sense, the guesses of the players were very close to the truth. However, guesses were still guesses. No matter how much they guessed, they would not know the specific situation of Han Shao. Furthermore, due to the lack of concrete evidence for NPCs, this theory was only spread among the players. Even if it was spread to the outside world, it would not be very convincing to normal people. Because Flying Free had single-handedly led this operation, he instantly became famous and was regarded by the players as the #1 loyal officer of the army. He expressed on the spot that he wanted to reorganize the Black Star fan club and turn it into a regular team recognized by the army. He also expressed that he wanted to communicate with the army commander and form an Immortal Guard's army as his personal guard. The forums were filled with joy. Other than praising Black Star, there were also many people mocking Winterwolf and the others, crazily whipping their corpses. Mario's little mushroom, TSK, some people just can't bear to see others doing well. They think of ways to drag you down and not let you develop well. They use some dirty and despicable methods, but instead of being ashamed, they are proud of it. Furthermore, they put on a sanctimonious face as if they are doing it for your own good. This is the best commentary for the word hypocritical. Big smart, got it. This is pointing at Black Star and scolding the Mecha Empire, laughing emoji. Master Turtle Shellbind. Hee, it's a pity that our army commander is wise and cannot be deceived. Some people will probably lose everything. However, in the midst of the mocking of the army players, the northern battlefront publicly jumped out and claimed that they were responsible for this matter. Instantly, a war of words broke out on the forums, drawing the attention of the players. What could they do? Compared to praising Black Star, scolding others was more interesting. While the forums were in an uproar, the influence of the Black Star Cup was also fermenting in the galaxy. The fact that an army member had backstabbed Black Star on the spot attracted a lot of attention, attracting many galactic residents who were originally not interested in the topic. They started to look for the cause and effect of the incident with the mood of gossip. Not long after the closing ceremony ended, Han Shao made a public announcement to the entire universe in the name of the army, explaining this matter to the public and satisfying the curiosity of the spectators. Basically, it was just adding details to Fly Free's public comments about the Mechanic Emperor, making the details more vivid and interesting. Then, it was published for the galactic residents to enjoy. At the same time, the announcement also deliberately emphasized that the Mecha Empire should not be angry. This was just the true thoughts of others and did not represent the attitude of the army. They would always maintain respect for the Mecha Empire, even if he was a bad person. At the same time, they also hoped that the Mecha Empire would always maintain the heart of an elder and not bicker with the younger generation. The galactic residents were still fine and were enjoying the show. However, the many beyond grade as who attended the event only had one sentence for Han Shao in their hearts. Wow, you really don't have any integrity. We like it. P.S. The schedule for today's annual meeting is very tight. I have to attend all kinds of activities, and many of my old friends who I only see once a year have to gather. I only have a little free time to write. With my speed, I can only write this much today. Sorry, brothers, please forgive me. Chapter 1149. By the way, in order to prove my moral integrity, I've decided to break the chapter with my brothers. It's better to have fun together than to have fun alone. Smiley face. Underscore 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 underscore. P.S. The handsome man who unfortunately drew the pot feels the coldness of the world underscore smiley face, angle underscore, godly mechanic, gulp. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1150. The drama of the Blackstar Cup spread like wildfire in the universe. There were at least 80 to 100 different kinds of rumors about Madison, but Madison did not respond to them at all. He could not be bothered with Han Shao at all. News usually only lasted for a few days, and this was especially true in the Galactic Society. The topic of the Blackstar Cup spread for a period of time before it gradually cooled down. However, the reputation of the various domain army elites who had made a name for themselves in the Black Star Cup had settled down, allowing the grassroots members to see more army officers. The experts of various levels were arranged. For example, among the Calamity grade officers, Hardaway was publicly recognized as the first, Jotina second, and so on. Those who did not participate or abstained were not known to the public. After the closing ceremony ended, Han Shao returned to the Black Star Palace to deal with various matters. He settled down Destiny's Child's sub-body, Rhodey, and conducted various research. He originally wanted to let second-generation ES-God Evans try to absorb Destiny's Child's sub-body, but after some thought, he finally gave up on this plan. Firstly, it was still uncertain whether the transformation of Destiny's Child's sub-body was considered an Esper ability gene awakening or a physical phenomenon mutation. Evans' black hole Esper ability could only deal with the former and not the latter. Secondly, Destiny's Child was very mysterious, and information forms were also a profound field. Han Shao was not sure if there would be any side effects after Evans absorbed it. He might even become a new subbody, so he did not want to take the risk. I still have to ask the Holy Covenant organization. They're the experts. In the laboratory, Han Shao looked at Rhodey, who was sleeping in the hibernation chamber, and nodded. The strangeness of Destiny's Child was beyond his ability, and his profession was not suitable. He had yet to find a way to solve Rhodey's sub-body transformation, so he could only use the regular information form restriction device to stabilize Rhodey's body and try to slow down the transformation speed. Han Shao rubbed his chin. Speaking of which, the Holy Covenant organization was about to finalize a new deal. As long as he could get the compensation from the other party, he would be able to casually expose the Holy Covenant. For this, he had already performed a cleansing operation on the Holy Light Particle in advance. The Holy Light Particle had shrunk into Aurora's body and was completely shut off. In addition to the 2 universe blueprints from the Holy Covenant and the 2 from the Radiance, I now have 7 gold blueprints. Han Shao opened the interface and took a look. Some time ago, he had released the last 2 Radiance Beyond Grade A captives and obtained 2 new Universal Treasure blueprints. One was a piece of equipment exclusive to the mechanical deity called the Titan Spine Center. The mechanical deity itself was a mechanical construct formed by countless soldiers. It could transform into all kinds of shapes, just like a ball of mechanical sludge monster. Because of this property, what connected the mechanical deity's limbs was mechanical force and special magnetic fields, acting as the neural network of the mechanical deity. The larger the size, the greater the consumption. As the name suggested, the Titan Spine Center was a tool that served as the center of the body. It filled the mechanical deity's body, and according to the will of the user, it extended into different complete skeletal structures. There were humanoid shapes, beast shapes, and so on. It was used to support the mechanical deity's body. Mechanical force was used to control the mechanical deity through this device, and the consumption of building a neural network would be greatly reduced. As a piece of equipment exclusive to the Universal Treasure class, it naturally had all kinds of bonuses. The Titan Spine Center could increase the basic strength of the mechanical deity, making the body of the mechanical deity faster and stronger. It also enhanced skills such as mechanical deity's descent, as well as machinery affinity and efficiency. In the battle with the Mecha Empire not long ago, Manason's mechanical deity was equipped with a large number of universal treasures, which made Han Xiao very jealous. He felt that he was like a blank slate, and the celestial punishment edge in his hand was no longer attractive. He decided to get more mechanical deity equipment. This was the strongest trump card of a mechanic at this stage. Because others could not last for long, they could only use it as a trump card, but he and the Mecha Empire could use it as a normal battle tactic. Thus, the more equipment exclusive to the mechanical deity, the better. The other gold blueprint was a special device called Mechanical Territory. In terms of effect, it was somewhat similar to Bayone's Fire Core Land and the Extinguish Army's Frost Core Land. It was even a little similar to the Evolution Cube. This was a large device that could increase the production efficiency of machinery within a certain range, the probability of mechanical life strengthening, the power of machinery equipment, and so on. To a beyond grade A mechanic, the greatest use of this thing was to oversee a machinery civilization or a dimension factory. It was equivalent to the mechanical version of the evolutionary totem. However, the production requirements were also quite harsh. The principle of this device was based on the theory of secondary dimensions. It would form a special domain within its range of effect, just like the descent of a secondary dimension. Thus, the core material was the origin energy fragments of the secondary dimension. The higher the quality, the better the finished product. Due to the difference in fragments, the final product would also have a small amount of characteristics of the secondary dimension that the fragment belonged to. Countless unstable new dimensions were born in the secondary dimensions every day, so there was no lack of origin energy fragments. However, one would have to take the risk of dimension collapse to collect the origin energy fragment. However, as long as one had the money, this was not a problem. Han Xiao had a piece of evil convergence origin energy fragment, which could be used for this purpose. 2 new blueprints, and the effects are not bad. Most importantly, as long as the finished product is produced, I will be able to obtain another 2 God's trait transformation points. Together with the deal with the Holy Covenant, I will be able to obtain a total of 4 points. Han Xiaoxin was secretly excited. He could not wait to turn into an otaku and spend half a month in the factory. Beep beep, at this moment, his communicator rang. Han Xiao opened it and saw that it was a call from the dynasty's exploration army commander, Brother Tarko. Old Tarko, what's the matter? Han Xiao glanced at him before lowering his head and continuing to fiddle with the device. The two of them were already very familiar with each other, so there was no need for formalities. I've found some clues about the matter you asked me to investigate, Tarakov said. Han Xiao's hands paused. Not long ago, when they were chatting, he had specially asked Tarakov to ask the Dynasty's Science Institute about the progress of the wormhole coordinates left behind by Esgod. He was worried that this was the trigger for Aesop's prophecy. How is it? They have made a breakthrough. Tarakov's reply made Han Xiaoxin's heart skip a beat. What are the specifics? They have already determined which part of the unexplored universe the coordinates of this wormhole leads to, but they are unable to pinpoint the exact location. They only have a rough idea. Few, at least they did not discover the World Tree or were discovered by the World Tree. Han Xiao secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but he was a little conflicted. The later the 3 universal civilizations came into contact with the World Tree, the more beneficial it would be for him. This was his greatest need at the moment. He did not dare reveal the existence of the World Tree civilization because with the style of the 3 universal civilizations, once they knew that there was a powerful civilization in the unexplored universe, they would definitely take the initiative to contact it. Even if he emphasized the danger of the world tree, it would not work. Explaining why he knew the details was secondary. The problem was that the three universal civilizations might become more cautious because of his reminder, but they would definitely not give up on contact. If they knew that there was a dangerous advanced civilization in the unexplored universe, they would definitely take the initiative to attack. Waiting for death was not the style of the three universal civilizations. Therefore, no matter what form he used to reveal the accurate information of the World Tree civilization, it would only bring forward the time of contact between the two sides. Now that God had been suppressed under the Five Fingers Mountain for 500 years, he was the only one left in the explored universe who knew about it. Only he could influence the direction of the World Tree version, so he had to be careful. How did the dynasty react to this? Terekov did not doubt him and said, the upper echelons did not react. The research project of this wormhole coordinates is no longer a secret, which is why I was able to find out about it. Yes, God has been captured for decades and has long become a thing of the past. Most of the research on him is not valued. Then, what does the Academy of Science plan to do? Continue to deduce the precise coordinates. Although we don't know why God values these coordinates, the Academy of Science will probably do the same as before. They will think of a way to activate the wormhole, throw a few detectors over, and wait for the results to be transmitted back. Han Xiao hesitated for a moment before saying, I feel that this research should be stopped for the time being. The unexplored universe is filled with danger, and no one knows what will happen. Right now, it's a crucial period in the competition between the three universal civilizations and the supercluster alliance. If another incident similar to the intelligent plague breaks out, it will be very disadvantageous for the dynasty. Terekov looked at Han Xiao suspiciously. You're clearly worried about this project. Do you know something? Would you believe me if I said it was my intuition? Terekov gave a fake smile, indicating that he did not believe Han Xiao's nonsense. He then casually said, I'll convey your message. As for whether they listen or not, it's none of my business. That's fine. Alright, I'll get back to work. Also, don't forget to attend the Three Universal Civilizations Commendation Ceremony in 2 months. Han Xiao nodded and turned off the remote communication. Terekov's remote projection disappeared before his eyes. After pausing for a moment, he ordered the team escorting the Holy Light Particle to set off and head to the trading location set by the Holy Covenant, the free competition zone of the flickering world. The day of the trade is almost here. In a certain secret base of the Holy Covenant organization, Oathkeeper opened his eyes and looked at the officers below. Has the emissary been arranged? He was sent out long ago. He's definitely loyal and reliable. What I want is not only loyalty but also a reliable ability. I understand virtual mechanics too well. Black Star will definitely take this opportunity to track him down, so we have to be on guard. Have you prepared the emissary's escape method? The Black Star Corps is the local tyrant in the flickering world. It's not suitable for us to have a conflict. We've already equipped the emissary with an information form stealth coding. As long as he gets the item, he'll activate the coding and disappear from the face of the earth. What about the guards? There are some, but there aren't many of them. They're only there to prevent accidents on the way. After all, this is the territory of the Black Star Corps, so there's no point in having more guards. Not bad. Oathkeeper nodded, indicating that he was quite satisfied. As long as we get the Holy Light Particle, we can start to reconcile the key to the third sanctum and start preparing for the awakening ceremony. Therefore, after we get it, we have to enter the darkest moment and completely cut off all contact with the outside world. After the trade is completed, I'll meet Black Star again. After that, there won't be any contact between us anymore. This will probably be the last time I see him. We probably won't have the chance to meet again in the future. Understood. Hearing his subordinate's reply, Oathkeeper nodded and started to daydream. To be honest, if not for the trade, he would not even want to see Black Star. Even now, he was still very confused. Who was the one who leaked the news? Did a mole even exist? P.S. The moderator is awesome and organized a new round of activities. The second Godly Mechanic fandom book review activity is in progress. Those who are interested can take a look at the book review section to understand. There will be rewards for participation. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 1151. On a certain transit planet in the flickering world's Dawn star cluster, the location chosen by Han Shao and Oathkeeper for the transaction. Fu Ding was appointed as the transaction emissary, representing the army to connect with the Holy Covenant emissary and wait for the other party to arrive. The entire process was monitored by Han Shao from the headquarters. Oathkeeper had also used telepathic projection to meet with Han Shao. The two of them maintained communication to ensure that the transaction went smoothly. They were both full of sincerity toward this transaction. In the office, a virtual screen floated on the table, playing the surveillance footage. It was a bustling area with people coming and going. Fu Ding was wearing a mask and standing by the wall of a building, scanning the people coming and going. The Holy Covenant emissary had yet to arrive at the designated location. When will your people arrive? We've been waiting for almost 2 hours. Han Shao leaned against the chair, staring at the screen in boredom, and casually asked Oathkeeper standing opposite him. They're almost here. You've already said this 7 times. They're really almost here this time. After a while, a man in the same disguise finally appeared on the screen, carrying a silver alloy suitcase. As if he had received an order, he walked straight toward Fu Ding. The two of them met face to face, but neither of them took any further action. Is he the emissary? Han Shao asked. That's right. Everything you want is in his suitcase. Han Shao nodded and contacted Fu Ding, indicating that they could exchange the goods. Oathkeeper also used telepathic projection to give the same order. The two of them received the order and directly exchanged the goods. They then took a few steps back and checked the things in their hands. A suit of armor suddenly appeared on Fu Ding's body, wrapping him and the suitcase together. The next moment, his figure disappeared and suddenly appeared in Han Zhao's office. The things are here. The armor opened, spat out the suitcase, and placed it on Han Zhao's table. This suit of armor was the King Mecha that Han Shao had temporarily lent to Fu Ding for his use. The teleportation beacon, throne, was left in his own hands, ensuring that he would be able to obtain the goods as soon as possible. Han Shao opened the box, and white cold air immediately flowed out. Inside were 2 cylindrical containers side by side, containing 2 primal Esper ability entities. One was emerald green and the other was sky blue. Next to the 2 containers was a data storage device. Han Shao activated it and glanced at it. 2 gold-grade blueprints were recorded inside, and all the items that Oathkeeper had promised to trade were available. At this time, the interface also moved and a notification popped up. Primal Esper Ability Entities. 4/4 Primal Esper Ability Collector. Milestone has been activated. When you fight an Esper, all your attributes will increase slightly, and the damage dealt by the Esper will be reduced by %. You have received the 3rd Sanctum Skill Fragment X1. Mission complete. Looks like it's the real deal. Han Xiaoxin calmed down and waved at Fu Ding. You can go back. Before the 3-minute time limit was up, he activated the King mechanical suit again. With a flash of mechanical force, Fu Ding was sent back to the transaction site. Oathkeeper turned around and looked over. Black Star, how was it? The item is fine. What about you? What you gave me was indeed the holy light particle. Han Shao raised his brows and extended his hand. Then, happy transaction? Although Oathkeeper was a mental projection without a physical body, he still pretended to shake Han Zhao's hand and said, happy transaction. The next moment, the Holy Covenant emissary seemed to have activated some device, and his entire person suddenly disappeared from the surveillance screen. Your people sure left quickly. Are you that worried about me? Han Zhao's eyes flashed and he smiled playfully. It's best to be careful. Oathkeeper did not deny his fear of Han Zhao. Seeing that his emissary had activated the information form coding and strictly followed the plan to leave the scene, Oathkeeper heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed his tense nerve. This transaction was very important to the Holy Covenant, and he was worried about many things. Most importantly, he was afraid that Black Star would not abide by the contract and track down the Holy Covenant emissary by any means. Now, it seemed like Black Star did not have such thoughts, and the transaction went quite smoothly. With the Holy Light Particle, the success rate of opening the third sanctum could basically reach the expected height. Oathkeeper suppressed his excitement and said, I will remember His Excellency Black Star's generosity. Since the transaction is complete, I should leave. Every time he dealt with someone like Black Star, it was a risk. The more he spoke, the more information he would reveal. Thankfully, he finally got what he wanted and did not need to deal with Black Star in the future. Oathkeeper only wanted to immediately deactivate the spiritual projection and never see Han Zhao again. Because Oathkeeper had always contacted Han Zhao through spiritual projection, it meant that only he could take the initiative to contact Black Star, and Black Star could not contact him. As long as he did not take the initiative to look for him in the future, Black Star would never have the chance to meet him again. At this time, Han Zhao suddenly smiled and said, Don't be in such a hurry. I don't know when we'll meet again. Let's talk about a few dollars. Before you leave, I have a few questions to ask you. Oathkeeper's heart skipped a beat. No way, why do you have questions again? Every time you ask I panic. It's definitely not a good thing. Go ahead, I'll try my best to answer. Oathkeeper was patient and cautious. Han Zhao narrowed his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Just like Oathkeeper, now that he had gotten the benefits of the deal, he had nothing to worry about. After pretending to ponder for a few seconds, he decided to start with the least stimulating question. He asked slowly, Do you know about Destiny's Child? Oathkeeper's eyes widened and he froze on the spot. What do you know, you bastard? He stared at Han Zhao's eyes, wanting to see Black Star's attitude. However, the other party's handsome eyes were filled with sincerity and clarity, as if he was really just asking casually. Oathkeeper found it difficult to calm down. He held back the waves in his heart and asked. He suppressed his emotions and asked, Why are you suddenly asking about this? Did something happen? There's nothing to hide. I once met a special individual who claimed to be Destiny's Child. Unfortunately, he died in a nuclear explosion. Not long ago, I met another similar individual. After some investigation, I found that there seems to be a primal esper ability called Destiny's Child in the universe. It seems to be able to transform certain creatures into special subbodies. You happen to be experts in primal esper abilities, so I came to consult you. That's all. What else? But from the looks of it, your Holy Covenant organization seems to know a lot. Han Zhao sized Oathkeeper up and said in confusion, Don't tell me that Destiny's Child is in your hands. The way your emissary disappeared just now does seem like an information form. It's also the technology you guys developed, right? Oathkeeper had a headache and secretly regretted overreacting just now. It was as if he had Black Star PTSD. No, don't talk nonsense. It's really not in your hands. No, Oathkeeper denied. Well, I don't care whether it's in your hands or not. I just want to know some information. You guys specialize in primal esper ability entities, so you must know something. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked me just now. Han Zhao knocked on the table and said casually. It looked like he believed it, but in fact, after seeing Oathkeeper's performance just now, he was 60% sure that Destiny's Child was in the hands of Holy Covenant. However, Oathkeeper would definitely not admit it, so Han Technician did not ask further. More importantly, he wanted to find out what Destiny's Child's mechanism was. Oathkeeper was helpless. After thinking about it, he picked out some information and explained in a deep voice, Destiny's Child is a very ancient primal Esper ability. Destiny's Child is a very ancient primal Esper ability entity, and we don't know much about it. Most of what we know is information from other primal Esper ability entities. It is said that Destiny's Child's ability involves the change of information form and the entanglement of destiny lines, and it has incredible precognition ability. The so-called destiny line is also called karma in some cultures. It's like a big net. If you flick one of the threads, the vibration will be transmitted to more threads. Therefore, every time it activates its ability, Destiny's Child has to read a lot of information and perform analysis similar to big data calculation to calculate the various possible consequences of an event and use it to make precognition. During this process, in order to read the so-called destiny line information, it will release special information form particles to collect information. This kind of particle will often cause the phenomenon of information form disturbance, producing part of its projection on random information aggregates and replacing part of the other party's information. In other words, it will create subbodies. The target is basically an individual life form. Some primal Esper ability entities said that Destiny's Child can turn into a high-dimensional information form. If it doesn't want anyone to discover it, no one will be able to discover it. Therefore, no one has been able to capture it until now. Therefore, you encountered two subbodies purely because you were lucky. Hearing this, Han Zhao's eyes flickered and his thoughts raced. The information about Destiny's Child that Oathkeeper mentioned was almost the same as what he had guessed. However, he felt that Destiny's Child's function was not limited to this. Only the precognition ability? Not necessarily. Since Destiny's Child could create subbodies, could it also create other things and even change the direction of the destiny line? The so-called information form disturbance had several manifestations, and the materialized mirage was one of them. Han Xiao had not forgotten how the domino virus that caused the intelligent plague came about. In version 1.0, the information he had obtained from the germinal organization showed that their Destiny's Child had the ability to affect the future, not predict the future. Han Xiao had only thought that the natives were ignorant, but now it seemed that it might not be a misunderstanding. Han Xiao asked a few more questions, and Oathkeeper expressed that he did not know and did not want to ask. It was obvious that he would not reveal any more information. Seeing this, Han Xiao had no choice but to change the topic. He narrowed his eyes and said casually, "By the way, you told me about the mechanism of your psychic projection ability last time. I looked into it afterward, and it seems that there is a primal Esper ability called Soul Flame that fits what you said." Hearing this, Oathkeeper did not hide anything. As if he felt that this was not a secret, he nodded. "That's right, I'm the host of Soul Flame. I looked into it again based on this clue. It seems that the last host of Soul Flame in the universe was a beyond grade A Esper nicknamed Soul Emperor. His name was Rovel Sissak. I wonder if you know him?" After saying that, Han Xiao stared at Oathkeeper closely, wanting to see his every move clearly. However, Oathkeeper did not show any surprise this time. He said, "I know him too, but I don't know this person." Han Xiao frowned. Unlike the question of Destiny's Child, Oathkeeper did not show any reaction to this question. He was not sure if Oathkeeper was mentally prepared for this, or if he did not care about his identity being exposed, or if he guessed wrong and the other party was not the sole emperor in history who was suspected to have faked his death. Han Xiao said, "Since Soul Flame once accompanied this host, it must know more. Help me ask." As soon as he said this, Han Xiao felt a little strange. It sounded like asking a man to ask his current girlfriend about her ex-boyfriend, which felt like the behavior of a straight man. What do you want to ask? Oathkeeper did not comment. I'm quite curious. After Soul Emperor died, who took Soul Flame and how did you get it? Oathkeeper's tone sank. Don't you think these questions are too private? I'm half a scientist. Is it wrong to be curious? Han Shao said righteously. Oathkeeper shook his head helplessly and said, All right, I know you're curious about my identity and think that I'm Soul Emperor or one of the Beyond grade as who killed Soul Emperor and took Soul Flame. But you're wrong. These people aren't me. I didn't steal the Soul Flame from anyone. When I met it, it was already free. It took me some effort to subdue it. Han Shao rolled his eyes. Then can you help me ask it what it experienced after Soul Emperor died? It's unwilling to say. Oathkeeper shook his head, paused, and said, however, it told me that Soul Emperor didn't die in battle. Since you've seen his life information, I won't go into detail. Anyway, in Soul Emperor's last battle, his body was indeed destroyed, but due to the uniqueness of his Esper ability, his spirit did not die. He escaped and disappeared. As for where he went, Soul Flame doesn't know. Han Shao pondered. He did not know if Oathkeeper was telling the truth, but from the other party's tone and what he said, it did not seem like he was fooling him. Soul Emperor did not revive in his previous life, which meant that there was a high possibility that he was still alive. If Oathkeeper was not Soul Emperor, then who was Soul Emperor? Could it be that he ran to the secondary dimensions and never came back? Do you have any other questions? If not, I'll take my leave first. Oathkeeper was a little impatient. He did not want to be entangled with Han Shao anymore. There were more important things waiting for him to do. He put all his heart and soul into the awakening ceremony. It was finally time to fulfill the oath he had made for many years, and he did not want to waste any time. In his opinion, being willing to stay and chat with Han Shao was already giving him enough respect. Otherwise, the moment the transaction was completed, he would have deactivated the projection and run away. After all, he did not need to interact with him again in the future, so he did not mind being a little rude. All right, you have more important tasks, so I won't hold you up. Han Shao stood up, made a gesture of sending him off, and deliberately sighed. Sigh, buddy, I have a pretty good impression of you. Once you leave, I don't know when you'll contact me again. I won't say anything else, but after you awaken as a primordial being, send my regards to the seniors. Oathkeeper, who was about to deactivate the mental projection, froze on the spot. The entire mental projection suddenly shook like white noise, representing intense emotional fluctuations, almost to the point of insanity. The sudden shock caused Oathkeeper's mental frequency to become unbalanced, and his ability suddenly went out of control. His eyes widened, revealing a look of disbelief. How could you know our top secret? I've clearly checked all the upper echelons, and there isn't a single spy. The moment this thought surfaced in his mind, Oathkeeper suddenly froze. No, I've fallen into a blind spot. There's actually still one upper echelon that I haven't checked. Someone once said that when you eliminate all possibilities and only one is left, no matter how unbelievable it is the truth. So, I'm the spy? Oathkeeper's brain was boiling. Chapter 1152. You. What exactly are you? Oathkeeper felt a strong impact in his heart. He was a little dazed, full of shock and doubt. Black Star waited until now to expose our intentions, so he must have known about this secret long ago. He was just pretending in the past, and he even managed to fool me. This B***starred is too evil. Seeing Oathkeeper's shock, Han Shao was surprised. Why are you still here? Weren't you leaving? I know you can't bear to part with me, but if you're in such a hurry, you should go back quickly. Han Shao was calm, deliberately tantalizing him. Actually, I'm not in such a hurry. Let's talk for a while. Oathkeeper laughed awkwardly as he secretly gritted his teeth. You bastard, you're definitely doing this on purpose. How would I dare leave without getting to the bottom of this? The effect of these words was comparable to fellow cultivator, please wait. Oathkeeper gave up on the idea of leaving immediately and pestered Han Shao instead, looking like he would not stop until he got to the bottom of this. Since you're so enthusiastic, I can't reject you. Seeing that Oathkeeper's emotions were unstable, Han Shao stopped teasing him and invited him back to his seat. Oathkeeper took a deep breath and carefully said, So, you know about our plans. Where did you find out? Black Star had already exposed the purpose of the Holy Covenant, so it was useless for him to continue pretending that he did not know. Furthermore, he felt that Black Star definitely had some ulterior motive. Otherwise, he could have kept this information hidden. Now that he took the initiative to expose it, it did not seem like an enemy's behavior. I have my own intelligence channels. Han Shao laughed and said, How could I possibly tell you this kind of information? You must be dreaming. Oathkeeper did not have much hope. If he were in Han Zhao's shoes, he would not reveal who the mole was either. He could only grit his teeth and bear with it. Since you know our goal, what are you planning? If he was facing an ordinary beyond grade A at this time, Oathkeeper might have thought of killing him to silence him. However, facing Black Star, he really did not have 100% confidence of winning. Black Star was just too much meat for him to handle. As long as Black Star wanted to, he could spread this information at any time. Because the other party had a handle on him, he had to be careful. What do you think I'm trying to do? Han Shao smiled faintly. I don't know. Oathkeeper had various guesses, but he didn't dare to say them out loud. In his opinion, there were only a few reasons why Black Star would do such a thing, such as blackmail or interfering with the plan. He couldn't possibly be just scaring him out of boredom, right? Why don't you take a guess? I can't guess. Tisk tsk, you're so boring. Han Shao shook his finger. Why are you so nervous? Since I didn't refuse to make a deal with you, don't you understand my position? Oathkeeper's eyes flashed. You mean you don't intend to stop us? Why should I stop you? Han Shao put his hands on his nose, narrowed his eyes, and said, I'm the leader of the Black Star Corps, the special consultant of the 3 universal civilizations, but I'm also the vice president of the Beyond Grade A Association. If you paid attention to the meeting of the gods a few years ago, you must know that I reached a consensus with the Mecha Empire during the meeting, Oathkeeper hurriedly recalled. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind like lightning, dispelling the fog. You're saying there are still too few Beyond Grade As? That's right. The Mecha Empire and I both said this back then, so you understand now. Han Shao chuckled. Oathkeeper suddenly felt enlightened. His thoughts spun quickly, and most of his doubts were answered. No wonder Black Star chose to sit back and watch despite knowing our goal. This might be the only chance to rapidly strengthen the Beyond Grade as in a short period of time. It's in his interest. However, Oathkeeper still had some doubts. I thought you were on the side of the 3 universal civilizations. I didn't expect you to do this. This is just a matter of recent publicity. I'm naturally on the same side as the 3 universal civilizations, but that doesn't mean I've become their vassal. I'm against the Mecha Empire only because they're too radical and take a different path. However, my demand for the number of Beyond Grade as is the same as theirs. So, you plan to have a deeper cooperation with us? That's right. I won't stop you from carrying out your plan, but I also have a request. I hope that your revived historical Beyond Grade as will all stand on my side. Oathkeeper nodded, then shook his head. This isn't that easy. They all have their own thoughts. Even if I revive them, they won't be my puppets. Han Shao rolled his eyes. Speaking of which, I've actually been quite curious. Why do you want to revive the dead Beyond Grade As? He had been very curious about this question in his previous life. The Holy Covenant organization had revived so many strong people, so logically speaking, they should be very ambitious. However, during the World Tree War, the Holy Covenant only appeared with a large group of revivers to resist the World Tree civilization. It seemed like they only ran out because they were insecure. He did not know what they were doing in private. As for the batch of historical beyond grade, as that appeared during the calamity of the supers, he was not sure if they were also from the Holy Covenant. Because of an agreement, an Oathkeeper's tone became low, as if he had a story to tell. Tell me about it. Han Shao was curious. Oathkeeper was silent for a while, as if hesitating if he should reveal more information. However, when he thought of Black Star's current attitude, he could only slowly speak. The Holy Covenant was born at the end of the Exploration era, established by a portion of the Primordial Ones. Our purpose is to revive those who died in the war. Although we're talking about that history in a more relaxed tone, Black Star, you should be able to understand the despair and unwillingness of the Primordial Ones. They spent their entire lives breaking through the limits of individual strength, but they were only treated as a new combat tool, fighting each other and dying one after another. Even if you don't want to participate in the war, the tide of the era will still drag you into it. You can check the information. How many Primordial Ones have met a good end? At the same time, because we've evolved to a new level, countless people covet and fear us. You should understand this logic. When an individual becomes too strong, the group will definitely be wary of them. There's nothing new in the universe, and this logic has not changed even now. At the end of the day, we're only a minority of heretics in the universe. We're both worshipped and feared. Among the Primordial Ones, there are some who are unwilling to be born in the chaotic era of war and wish to go to the prosperous era of peace, but their lifespans are limited. There are also some who are unwilling to die in the war. Even if they're sacrificed, they're still trying to be reborn in the future. Therefore, many people began to secretly look for a way to revive and split into different factions. Some of them formed the Holy Covenant organization. This is where we came from, and it's also my oath, I see. Hearing this, Han Shao could not help but think. The Primordial Ones wished to live through the Exploration era by reviving, and he could understand this. It was not easy for them to obtain an individual strength that could dominate the entire galaxy, but they were reduced to tools of war. At that time, there was no place for the existence of beyond grade A organizations. Other than a few exceptions, most of the strong could only become the high-level fighters of the civilizations. Remaining neutral was an extravagant hope, and no one would be willing to do so. Furthermore, the beyond grade as had just been born, there was not a single civilization that did not want to delve deeper into their research. Coupled with the concern that the Primordial Ones would not be able to escape unscathed, the environment they lived in was extremely harsh. It was far from being as free, safe, and comfortable as the modern beyond grade as. The Primordial Ones had thought of all sorts of revival methods, or perhaps the underworld was one of them. It was just that very few people chose it. After all, not everyone was willing to become the subordinates of the two former sisters. Furthermore, the two sisters were not that reliable. No wonder the Underworld's land granny had said that the two former sisters were also invited to participate in a project regarding the sanctums. It was probably related to the Holy Covenant organization, but the two sisters rejected it as if they did not want to be revived. Han Shao stroked his chin and pondered. So, what method did you use to revive those beyond grade as? This. I can't tell you. Oathkeeper shook his head. Han Shao was dissatisfied. Humph, I can guess even if you don't say it. It should be related to the sanctums, right? I've shown my attitude, so you have to show your sincerity too. Oathkeeper felt that he was completely controlled by Black Star. After hesitating for a while, he nodded heavily. That's right, it's the sanctums. I really can't tell you anything more specific now. I'll tell you the method after I complete the oath. Han Shao curled his lips and changed the topic. Then let's talk about cooperation now. I can facilitate your plan and keep it a secret for you, but you have to give me something in return. Han Shao stated his request. Resources and intelligence were secondary. He mainly wanted to obtain the method to revive the dead through the sanctums, as well as some of the special technology that the Holy Covenant organization had accumulated over the years. He also wanted to establish good karma with these revivers. Regardless of whether Oathkeeper was willing or not, he could only trust Han Shao and accept him as a collaborator. Otherwise, if Han Shao revealed some secrets, it would be even more troublesome. Oathkeeper could not guarantee that Black Star did not have any ulterior motives, but he was not someone to be trifled with. He was not willing to fight now, but he would not be afraid if they really fought. The two of them discussed for a while and finalized a formal cooperation agreement. Oathkeeper had to leave a stable communication channel so that Black Star could talk to him at any time. He no longer had to wait passively. After doing all this, Oathkeeper went offline with a lot of thoughts in his mind. He would probably have to go through psychological rehabilitation when he returned. Meanwhile, Han Shao stayed in his office with his legs crossed and his fingers touching his lip. He looked like he was deep in thought. What he said to Oathkeeper was the truth, but he did not tell him everything. He did want to increase the number of Beyond Grade as. On one hand, it was to increase the authority of the Beyond Grade as in the universe and his position in the association. On the other hand, it was to deal with the World Tree. Aesop's prophecy and the progress of the dynasty's Academy of Sciences made him have no choice but to prepare and find more helpers. At the same time, he was also curious about the methods of the Holy Covenant to revive the primordial ones and wanted to dig deeper into the functions of the sanctums. Furthermore, he did not want the Holy Covenant organization and a large number of Beyond Grade as to leave his sight and hide. He proposed this cooperation because he wanted to leave a stable contact channel so that he could pay attention to and monitor the other party's movement. The final motive was that Han Technician wanted to try triggering a mission. He felt that the chances of this mission being triggered were not small. The result was also quite gratifying. A notification popped up on the interface. You have triggered the hidden mission, return to the stage of history. Mission Introduction. You learn from Oathkeeper that the goal of the Holy Covenant organization is to revive some of the Beyond Grade as in history. You have chosen to cooperate with them. Mission Requirements. Assist the Holy Covenant organization in successfully completing the Awakening Plan. Reward. Plus 25 favorability of all revived Beyond Grade as and plus 1 legendary point. Remarks. This mission is the initial mission of a series. Once you accept this mission, you will have a higher chance of triggering more hidden missions of the same series. Initial mission of a series means that this mission is the entry point of a storyline. That's right. If I did not cooperate with the Holy Covenant organization, the subsequent matters would have nothing to do with me. Naturally, I would not be able to intervene. Han Shao did not hesitate and accepted the mission. He had a feeling that this mission series was probably related to the main storyline of several versions. In a certain secret base of the Holy Covenant organization, Oathkeeper retracted his mental projection and let out a long sigh. He was still in a daze as he digested the changes in the situation. Boss, what's the situation? Did Black Star fulfill his end of the deal, or did he overturn the agreement? Law and Faye stood below. Seeing Oathkeeper's reaction, they could not help but ask curiously. Oathkeeper came back to his senses, tightened his expression, and said unwillingly, "From now on, Black Star is our temporary ally." Law and Faye's eyes widened. What happened? Why did it happen so suddenly? The Holy Covenant organization had never found a partner before. This was the first time. Could it be that this was not a simple deal? Why did Black Star suddenly become an ally? I've long heard that Black Star's ability to make friends is strong. Could it be that Boss was also Tui, he fell for it? Chapter 1153. In the Army Commander's exclusive factory in Black Star Palace, Han Shao walked in with a suitcase and placed it on the table. With a click, he opened the lid and took out 2 cylindrical containers of primal Esper abilities. He held them in his hands and sized them up. He shook them slightly. The emerald green primal Esper ability was very viscous and had a liquid texture, while the sky blue primal Esper ability was like a light mist with ice chips. The emerald green one was called Nature's Spiritual Power. It could control all kinds of plants and greatly accelerate their growth. It could also summon wild beasts and had all kinds of natural powers, just like a druid. It was slightly weaker in terms of direct combat, but it could extract and synthesize all kinds of toxins from all kinds of plants. It was not bad to use it for research. The Holy Covenant used this Esper ability to cultivate all kinds of magical plants and toxins. The sky blue one was called Frost Authority. Not only could it control cold air, but it could also temporarily turn snow and ice into ice statue warriors. They would be covered in ice armor, wielding ice swords, and step on the cold wind to spread death without any temperature. It also had multiple transformation functions. It was said that if the host was strong enough, they could even temporarily freeze the movement of molecules, causing the effect of condensing time and space. These 2 abilities are actually not bad. After all, they're compound primal Esper abilities. However, the main function is to activate my milestone. Han Shao played with the 2 tubes of primal Esper ability and pondered. The Primal Esper Ability Collector milestone allowed him to obtain targeted enhancements when facing Esper ability users and obtain an innate advantage. The effect was very impressive. As for the third sanctum fragment, although it did not seem to be of much use at the moment, Han Shao felt that it might come in handy after he obtained the method to open the sanctum from the Holy Covenant. Speaking of which, who should I give these 2 abilities to? Han Shao quickly filtered through one candidate after another in his mind. The first choice was to give them to Evans. With his talent, he should be able to ignore the adaptability like ES-God and easily master the primal Esper ability. However, after thinking about it, Han Shao temporarily rejected this idea. Evans's priority now was to level up and combine his combat style by absorbing all kinds of Esper abilities. Even if he gave the 2 primal Esper abilities to Evans, this guy would not have much time to focus on research. Furthermore, Evans's level was still too low, and he had no chance to fight. His primal Esper ability could only be used as a decoration. Let's see if there are any suitable hosts among the officers of the army first. If there aren't any, I'll consider Evans at the end, Han Shao thought. Putting away the 2 tubes of primal Esper ability, Han Shao opened the data storage device again. He did not have the time to carefully look through the 2 golden blueprints sent by the Holy Covenant, and now he had a good look at them. The blueprints provided by the Holy Covenant were all ancient technology. They were probably antiques from the exploration era and had not been improved much. One of the blueprints was called Psionic Obelisk. It had the ability to transform the nature of energy, create an energy barrier, and so on. The only difference between it and a normal shield was that it had extraordinary resistance to energy attacks, and it could absorb the power of attacks to restore the shield's value. However, this was only its basic function. The core function of the Psionic Obelisk was to provide an area with a huge amount of energy that could be freely borrowed without a transmission channel. Simply put, this thing could increase the energy density of an area, making all kinds of energy factors denser and more active. In other words, the Psionic Obelisk was equivalent to some kind of treasure that could increase the spiritual energy density of an area. It was similar to a man-made demon wave or a blessed land. Because the energy provided by the psionic obelisk was public energy that could be freely borrowed without a transmission channel, it was no different from a holy object to an ordinary civilization. The extremely active energy factors would allow individuals to use energy in more ways, and there would be a higher chance of creating all kinds of cultivation systems. It would also increase the ratio of supers. At the same time, with the large-scale infusion of energy from the psionic obelisk, one could temporarily undergo a special transformation, allowing ordinary people to immediately possess combat strength. The effect of the psionic obelisk was somewhat similar to the evolutionary totem, but the focus was different. The former focused on increasing the overall energy density of an area, while the latter focused on optimizing the genes of the individual life forms within the area. In comparison, the evolutionary totem was still rarer. However, this thing still had its uses. If it was placed in the various bases of the army, it could increase the training efficiency of the army members and give birth to more powerhouses. At the same time, it could also be sold for business. Even if the sales were not as good as the evolutionary totem, it was still a decent source of wealth. The Holy Covenant organization paid attention to secrecy, so they did not sell the psionic obelisk. Even if they left it in the warehouse, it would only accumulate dust. They were not good at mechanical technology, and they could earn a lot of money just by relying on Esper ability technology. Thus, they chose to provide Blackstar with a source of wealth. Actually, the blueprint that the Holy Covenant organization had originally planned to exchange was not this. Oathkeeper felt that Blackstar was unfathomable, so he exchanged it for a better blueprint. It might have been because he wanted to pay a protection fee. The other blueprint was called Geta Hadouken. It sounded like a pugilist move, but it was actually a compound attack device. The device was a blueprint for weaponry and energy branching. There was a whole set of complicated equipment, but it was not assembled together like a gun. Instead, it was spread out like an external carrier. Through a special method of energy gathering, compression, conversion, and firing, a full set of processes, it released a powerful attack. The attack that was released was called Geta Hadouken. At the same time, this was not a single move. According to the different operating routes of the device, Geta Hadouken had many variations. It could be used in close range, mid-range, and long-range attack. There were dozens of matching operating routes recorded in the blueprint. Each operating route represented a move and had its own unique name. They all had the same series of names with the Geta symbol. Compared to a blueprint, why does this thing look more like a mechanical version of a pugilist's secret manual? It should be used by mechanical pugilists. Han Xiao scratched his head. Psionic obelisk, Geta Hadouken, and the Titan Spine Center and mechanical territory given by the Radiance organization. He had obtained 4 gold-grade blueprints, and he had finally received the final payment. Now that the blueprints were complete, the next thing to do was to turn them from blueprints into real objects. There are still about 2 months until the public commendation ceremony of the 3 universal civilizations. It's time for me to go into seclusion and create 4 finished products. I'll get the gods' trait transformation points. Plus, I've been in the limelight a little too much recently. I'll keep a low profile for a while to digest the impact and stabilize my reputation. Han Xiaoxin rubbed his palms together and could not wait to enter manufacturing mode. In a secret training base of the Red Empire in the Central Galaxy, a group of operators in officer uniforms were operating the equipment in a room full of instruments. One of the walls of the room was a huge transparent window that protruded outward. 2 senior officers stood in front of the window. One of them was the manager of the base, and the other was the chief instructor of the base. The 2 of them looked through the window and looked down. Below them was a huge space that looked like an inverted pyramid. The deepest part was more than 100 meters. A man was sitting at the bottom. His whole body was releasing strong energy waves. The glowing energy particles spread along the walls and converged at the top. They formed a cycle repeating over and over again. This was a special training ground for supers that could increase training efficiency. The person using this facility was God, and the room full of instruments was the monitoring room. Many operators were paying attention to God's energy level readings. He's improving very quickly. He's a good seedling. The chief instructor stared at the figure below and nodded with satisfaction. That's right. He's the talent most likely to reach beyond grade A. Not only does he have potential, but his Esper ability is also extremely strong. Maybe one day, he'll take over His Excellency Claudi's position. The manager of the base agreed. Black Star is still ahead. It won't be his turn. I'm just saying. Plus, Black Star isn't a direct descendant. The two of them whispered to each other. God had been training here for many years, and he had been improving at lightning speed. He passed all kinds of obstacles with almost no bottleneck. He used extremely radical methods to improve his life level. Although it was extremely dangerous, it gave people a feeling of familiarity. To the two of them, even if God's talent was not as good as Black Star's, who broke the record, he was not far behind. The chief instructor looked at the readings on the instrument and said in amazement, "At this speed, he'll probably enter the beyond grade A realm in 2 to 8 years. He's the most efficient person I've ever seen, not counting Black Star. Looks like we'll be able to witness the rise of another beyond grade A super." The manager of the base chuckled. The upper echelons have already sent people to ask twice. It seems like they're also very concerned about God's progress. Nurturing a direct beyond grade A super was an obvious achievement. As long as God completed his promotion, his position would also be moved up. After chatting for a while, the topic of the two of them returned to work. "Is the list of new trainees for this batch out?" the chief instructor asked. "It's done. I'm about to hand it over to you." The manager brought up a virtual screen and displayed a list. This kind of secret training base would select talents from the dynasty every once in a while for targeted training. If they had potential, the dynasty would not mind picking them up from a child and nurturing them from grade D all the way to calamity grade, branding them as direct descendants of the dynasty. Therefore, not only were they recruiting calamity grades, they were also divided into different grades and classes according to their grade. The lower the grade of the class, the more intense the competition was. In the grades below the calamity grade, an elimination system had always been implemented. Either you passed the test or you packed up your things and returned to the army. If you were capable, then go. If you were not, then don't be a dog in the manger. The list was very long. Everyone had their resume and battle records attached to the back. There were countless honors, and they were all elites of their respective fleets. The chief instructor browsed through the list carefully. When he saw the last special recruit, he was suddenly stunned. Among the elites with magnificent resumes, a guy with almost no honors had snuck in. Furthermore, his photo was very silly and did not have any charisma at all. Carrot? What's the background of this guy? Why did the higher-ups choose such an ordinary guy? The chief instructor was puzzled. He flipped through Carrot's short resume 3 times and only saw the word ordinary. Although the secret training base did not only recruit elite students, there should at least be something special about them. How did this guy, who looked no different from a normal soldier, get in? Could it be because of his connections? The upper echelons of the dynasty were also corrupt. The chief instructor was heartbroken. "I wasn't very clear before, so I asked around." The manager said hesitantly. "They said that Black Star publicly expressed his support for this person many years ago, but he has never shown any outstanding performance. Therefore, the upper echelons want to try and see if they can nurture him." "So that's the case." The chief instructor frowned. "I feel that it's a waste of a slot. After so many years, if he had any potential, he would have shown it long ago. What's the point of nurturing him with a gambling mentality? If you strongly disagree, I'll help you pass on your opinion. The manager didn't care. After all, he wasn't the one teaching the students. The chief instructor frowned and pondered for a few seconds. Finally, he shook his head. Forget it. Since the upper echelons have decided, I'll just follow their orders and give him a chance. But I won't deliberately go easy on him. If he can't meet the assessment requirements, he will be eliminated. Then, the upper echelons will have nothing to say. There was no compulsory education here. The chief instructor only liked the top students and was too lazy to spend energy on the poor ones. He even felt that it was a waste of time to look at them. In his opinion, concentrating all the resources on the talented top students was the best way to maximize the benefits of resources. That's good. The manager looked at the list again and said, Then I'll arrange for him to enter the most elite class and give him the most powerful opponents. This way, he won't be able to stay for long. He'll probably leave in the first quarter. The manager's thoughts were similar. Nurturing a poor student into an elite would not help his political achievement. Only by nurturing an elite into a top force would it be counted as a merit. Therefore, he didn't mind using his authority within the scope of the rules to eliminate the less talented students as much as possible. This would free up the quota to recruit more new students and then dig out new potential stocks from them. In his eyes, this was also the best use of limited resources. Survival of the fittest was the law of nature. Central Galaxy, Constellation Corridor, Red Empire Academy of Sciences, Space Coordinate Research Group, Wormhole Positioning Project Office. The Academy of Sciences was divided into many groups with different projects. The Wormhole Positioning Project was a very large one. All the suspicious wormhole data collected by the dynasty were analyzed and deduced here. The wormhole data left behind by ES-God was only one of the targets of this project. Furthermore, it was a sample number that was not very important. The research team leader was calculating the wormhole model in the laboratory. At this time, his secretary hurriedly walked in. Leader, the approval from the upper echelons has been received. They rejected our application for the wormhole travel test. Rejected? The research team leader was surprised. Isn't it usually just a procedure? Why aren't we allowed to do field research this time? After deducing part of the coordinates of a wormhole data, a directional travel test would usually be conducted. A few multifunctional probes would be thrown through the wormhole to conduct field research and positioning. This would establish a more accurate coordinate system and test if there were any errors in the data deduction. It was a standard experimental method. The research team leader was quite interested in this batch of test samples, which included the wormhole data left behind by ES-God. He did not care about what was behind this wormhole, but this sample was especially difficult to calculate. It was not easy to determine the range, so he was eager to know if he had calculated wrongly. The secretary pushed his glasses and said hesitantly, "I don't know the details, but I heard that this was a suggestion from His Excellency Black Star. The upper echelons think it makes sense, so they temporarily tightened the review standards for most research projects." How is it related to Black Star? What did he say? He seems to have said that the Supercluster Alliance is about to make a move. Once a conflict breaks out, the three universal civilizations won't have the time to care about anything else. Therefore, it's best to reduce the possibility of random risk. He suggested that all research projects on wormholes be suspended. The upper echelons accepted his suggestion. The research team leader could not help but complain. Black Star is half a scientist. Isn't he just adding trouble to us? This time, a researcher carefully came over. Leader, do we still need to do the travel test? Hearing this, the research team leader said with annoyance, "What do you need to do? Without the approval of the upper echelons, you dare to do research on your own? Good lad, you have no respect for your superiors. I have to correct your thinking. Someone, bring me 2 sets of wormhole data that haven't been calculated. Let him calculate it. If he can't calculate it, your holiday this year will be cancelled. So we have holidays? The researcher scratched his head with a confused expression. Where did our previous holidays go? I have a cold today. End of chapter. Chapter 1154. Central Galaxy, Abyss of Stars, Ancestral Land of Shadow. The dark gaseous planet was still suspended there, as if it had existed since ancient times. On this day, streams of light shot over from afar, and a fleet arrived through hyperdrive. The pitch-black planet suddenly became restless. The black energy flowing on the surface of the planet shot out like a solar prominence, raising waves tens of thousands of meters high. As if shaking off a body full of lice, shadows of shadow servants appeared from the waves, ready to launch an overwhelming attack at any time. At this time, the leading spaceship of the fleet suddenly burst out a ring of black soul flame, which spread rapidly and swept across the black star sphere. The next moment, the black star sphere quieted down, like a cat retracting its claws. Countless shadow servants returned to the black ocean, merging into the surface of the planet and disappearing. Oathkeeper stepped out of the spaceship and floated in space. He stared at the black star sphere in front of him and slowly spoke through telepathy. The time has been brought forward. We have to perform the synthesis ritual immediately, or we won't be able to make it in time. But I haven't completed the conversion yet. It's too late. If we miss this date, I won't be able to bring anyone back even if we enter the third sanctum. There's no fixed cycle for the date, and I don't know how many years it will take before we meet again. We can't miss this opportunity. All right, I'll do my best to cooperate. Oathkeeper nodded, turned to the fleet, and said with a deep voice, "Begin synthesizing the last key." As soon as he said that, the fleet immediately took action, spreading out and docking at different positions on the black star sphere, forming a specific formation. The armor plates at the bottom of the spaceship moved away, revealing a circular device that released a blurry light and connected with each other, forming a huge translucent energy shield that covered the black star sphere. Then, a silver-white special cannon barrel extended out from the abdomen of all the spaceships, aiming at the black star sphere. In the mental network built by Oathkeeper, the voices of officers reported one after another. Level 12 Energy Stabilization and Compression Force Field completed. Target covered. Launcher activated. All Primal Esper ability entities loaded. Sequence setup complete. Information form template loaded. Reconciliation process automatically calibrated. Preparation complete. Everyone on standby. Wait for my command. Oathkeeper said solemnly and raised his palm. Everyone stared at Oathkeeper's palm and held their breaths. Law and Fae clenched their fists, their chests heaving up and down. Seeing that the Holy Covenant organization's mission for so many years was about to come to an end with the wave of a hand, everyone's mood was fluctuating. Looking around, Oathkeeper closed his eyes slightly and waved his hand down resolutely. "Move out." As soon as he finished speaking, it was as if a button had been pressed. It was as if a sophisticated instrument had been activated. All the operators present had practiced the process thousands of times without making any mistake. They strictly followed the steps and began the synthesis ceremony. Bang, bang, bang. Colorful beams of light shot out from the silver-white barrel, each representing a primal Esper ability entity. All of them entered the black star sphere. Thousand Shadows Esper ability was the foundation of the synthesis. Through its own ability mechanism, it began to compress and fuse many primal Esper ability entities. The black star sphere changed in an instant. Energy of different colors shuttled back and forth in the black sea on the surface of the planet. It was as if dye had been spilled, becoming colorful. All kinds of energies of different natures clashed and reacted violently. The color of the black star sphere became brighter and brighter, gradually being dyed from black to incandescent. It turned into a floating white ball of light like a super-large light bulb. The force field shield covering it immediately reacted violently, withstanding the powerful impact. It flickered and trembled as if it would disintegrate at any moment. If the original black star sphere was a hard rock, then this white ball of light had now turned into a ball of mud stained with water under the influence of many factors. It was very malleable. At this time, the information form template came into effect. It was as if an invisible hand had started to knead this ball of light. Its shape kept changing, and its volume shrank rapidly. Under everyone's eyes, it turned from a huge planet to a ring less than 100 meters in diameter. It was slowly rotating, and the energy density had increased many times. It was so dazzling that it was almost impossible to look at it directly. Success! Seeing this, the Holy Covenant members present all cheered. Oathkeeper suppressed the excitement in his heart and shouted, "Throw in the other keys and open the third sanctum." The troops moved again. They took out the keys they had gathered previously and threw them into the center of this white ring through the traction force field. It was as if there was a special force holding up these objects and making them rotate with the ring. When the last key was thrown in, the ring suddenly shot out a light, projecting an image in space not far away. It was like a world in a mirror. In the image there were 6 blurry light gates that were also rotating slowly. They did not look far away, but they were untouchable like a mirage, as if they were in another world. This scene only lasted for a moment before the 5 light gates suddenly disappeared. Only one of them remained, and it rapidly expanded as if it had turned from an illusion to reality. It turned into a 5-meter-tall, 3-meter-wide light gate passage. The edges were still trembling, and it seemed to be quite unstable. Inside the passage there was only a light of nothingness, and nothing could be seen clearly. This is the door of the third sanctum. According to the information passed down, the flow of time inside is very strange. It's not long before the appointed day. I have to go in now, this thought flashed through Oathkeeper's mind. He took a deep breath and prepared to fly toward the light gate channel. However, at this time, the white halo transformed from the black star sphere suddenly trembled violently. Black fog was separated and turned into a face. It opened its mouth and let out an unwilling roar, exploding in everyone's heart. Buzz! The sudden change made the channel of the third sanctum blurry again, as if it was going to disintegrate at any time. 1,000 shadows! Oathkeeper turned around abruptly. Soul flame shot out of his eyes and instantly hit 1,000 shadows, burning the fog into nothingness. This attack had completely destroyed 10,000 shadows remaining consciousness. Only now did 10,000 shadows truly die. He will indeed counterattack at the last moment. Oathkeeper was not surprised and sighed secretly. The Holy Covenant originally planned to wait until 1,000 Shadows' consciousness was completely devoured before performing the ritual, but the appointed day was brought forward, and there was no time to wait. Although Oathkeeper could easily kill the remaining consciousness of 1,000 Shadows, under normal circumstances, 1,000 Shadows and the Esper ability were one, and outsiders could not forcibly separate them. If they made a move, even the consciousness of the Esper ability entity itself would be destroyed. This way they would lose this primal Esper ability entity prototype that had not yet taken shape. The synthesis ritual could eliminate unnecessary things, and 1,000 Shadows planned to counterattack. This was why it was temporarily separated, giving Oathkeeper a chance to kill the other party. However, although Oathkeeper minimized the impact of 1,000 Shadows, it still had a negative impact on the opening ceremony of the Third Sanctum. The door of the Third Sanctum became more and more unstable. Without any time to waste, Oathkeeper rushed into the passage of the Third Sanctum and only had time to leave behind a sentence. "Before I return, Law and Faye will temporarily lead the organization and keep a low profile. Wait for me to bring them back." The next moment, the passage of the third sanctum collapsed, and the keys disintegrated. Except for the primal Esper ability entity, the other keys were basically one-time use. The results that the Holy Covenant had spent many years gathering disappeared one after another. Oathkeeper was also missing. All the locators that he had deliberately brought with him had failed, as if they no longer existed in this world. More than a month later, somewhere in the asteroid belt of the flickering world, a black and a red figure shuttled through it, fighting fiercely. Torrent, get a Hadouken! A bright blue thick ray flashed, and the asteroid belt along the way was instantly annihilated, leaving behind a blank path. The red figure dodged the attack with blink and waved a red energy to block the opponent. Light flickered in the starry sky as the two of them fought back and forth. It was Han Xiao and Hela, who were sparring as usual. The two of them had fought many times and knew each other well. Han Xiao landed a heavy knee on Hela's abdomen, kicking her until she could not straighten her back. Then, he slashed her throat with a powerful palm blade. Only then did the sparring end. Cough, cough, cough. Hela knelt on an asteroid, covered her neck and coughed for a while. Only then did her broken throat recover. I lost again. Don't be discouraged. You're improving very quickly. The underworld is really a good thing. Han Xiaoxin was a little jealous. Ever since she had obtained the underworld dimension, Hela's growth speed had also reached the level of a cheat. The better the underworld recovered, the more it would increase her Esper ability. Therefore, Han Xiao had been sparring with Hela recently, and he had been going as hard as he could. If he went easy on her, Hela would complain that he was going easy on her. No matter how fast I improve, I'm still not as fast as you. Hela stood up, pointed at the device floating beside Han Xiao, and said, "Your new weapon is not bad. Even I can't take a few hits from it. After all, I'm a mechanic. Our system is different." Han Xiao smiled and put away the Geta Hadouken. In the past 2 months, he had already created all 4 new gold-grade blueprints. With Billion Mecha Empire, Manison, the success rate and efficiency of creating universal treasures had greatly increased, and the cost had been greatly reduced. The evolutionary totems could be easily mass-produced, but the psionic obelisk was very difficult. However, Han Xiao had also created a batch of finished products and installed them in many bases. The mechanical territory was mainly provided to the mechanical civilization. The application range of the Titan Spine Center was limited to the mechanical deity. Only the Geta Hadouken was the most practical. Not only was it suitable for many kinds of combat environments, but it could also be combined into various moves, creating a combo similar to a mechanical pugilist. It was deeply loved by Han Technician. The attack power of the Geta Hadouken itself depended on the output power of the energy core and the energy input from the user. It had an attack enhancement effect, increasing the original attack power by a percentage. Its lethality was very impressive. Other than focus fire, mechanics generally lacked powerful output method. The Geta Hadouken made up for this gap to a certain extent. Furthermore, every time he used this weapon, Han Xiao could not help but shout out, as if it could increase its power. The 2 primal Esper abilities were also dealt with. The nature spiritual energy found a host, which was Yi Yeching, who was the director of the Pharmaceutical Research Institute in the Logistics Department. Their abilities were very compatible, and they were successfully adapted. As for the Heavenly Frost Authority, it did not find a host, so Han Xiao temporarily made it a mysterious energy host. After casually cleaning up the battlefield, Han Xiao casually asked, "In a while, the 3 universal civilizations' joint award ceremony for the heroes of the Intelligent Plague will be held. Do you want to attend?" "I didn't participate in the Intelligent Plague. Why would I go?" Hela shook her head. "You, on the other hand, are going to receive the award on stage and have to say a few words. Are you ready? What's there to prepare? Isn't it just a formality? I'll say it as soon as I open my mouth." Give me what you can. Hela rolled her eyes. Usually, she was very dignified and hardly chatted with her subordinate. Only when facing Han Xiao would she say a few more words. Speaking of which, the free competition zone has been a little strange recently. What do you mean? The progress of the fourth exploration phase is estimated to have reached 80%. The Supercluster Alliance's expansion is getting bigger and bigger. They are no longer just exploring the inner regions but have started to invade and seize the planets occupied by other organizations on a large scale. Furthermore, their territories are connected. Not only do they include the central area of the free competition zone and many resource-rich star systems, but they have also built a Stargate transportation system, connecting many borders. Their strategic intentions are obvious. Han Xiao did not find it strange. That's normal. The Supercluster Alliance is preparing. It's estimated that in a while, the three universal civilizations will have an official conflict with them. They want a piece of land in the flickering world, but the three universal civilizations are not willing to let the supercluster have space to develop. At the same time, they have the excuse of free competition and anti-monopoly, so the conflict between the two sides cannot be resolved. There are also some other organizations that are acting a little strange, including many non-army immortals. They seem to be getting restless. Got it. I'll pay more attention to this. Han Xiao nodded. The signs of the world server national war were appearing, and the shadow of the Supercluster Alliance was behind it. The two of them chatted for a while before returning to their respective fleets and heading in different directions. Hela returned to the free competition zone, while Han Xiao was heading toward the planet where the three universal civilizations were holding the award ceremony, the Dawn Star Cluster, the gateway to the flickering world. The fleet sailed for a while and successfully arrived at their destination. The celebration planet was already filled with guests, and countless spaceships formed a long line in the universe. After reporting their identities, the fleet was led by the Dynasty Guards through the VIP channel and docked at the port. As soon as Han Xiao walked out of the spaceship, he saw Terakov waiting for him there. The two of them approached with large strides and shook hands. "How long have you been waiting here?" "Not long, Your Excellency Black Star. You're early." I'm the most punctual person." After exchanging a few pleasantries, Terakov suddenly lowered his voice and said, "I didn't know where to hide. Because I had to keep my whereabouts a secret, I didn't inform you. Now I can tell you. The leaders of the three universal civilizations will be attending this meeting. Be prepared." Han Xiao raised his brows. "You mean, that's right. They'll be attending in person this time, not in projection." Han Xiao was rather surprised. "I thought I was just here to go through the motions, but it turns out to be so impressive. It seems like the three universal civilizations are determined to make me famous." Chapter 1155. After waiting for a few days on the celebration planet, Han Xiao clearly witnessed the increase of the planet's security level. Regular military troops arrived one after another and took over the responsibility of protecting the planet. The defense line was impenetrable, safer than any place he had ever seen. Half of the surrounding star zones were under martial law, and all kinds of advanced defense measures were set up to prevent all kinds of long-range attacks from threatening the celebration planet. The intelligent plague broke out in the ancient star desert, so logically speaking, the ceremony should be held in the ancient star desert. The three universal civilizations said that they had considered the fact that many beyond grade as were currently in the flickering world, so they changed the venue. They also said that this place had symbolic meaning, representing another major exploration result of the Galactic Society after so many years. It was a rare sight for the leaders of the three universal civilizations to attend the commendation ceremony together. Due to their sensitive identities, such events would usually be held in the central galaxy and would rarely be held in other star fields. Even if there were thorough security personnel, accidents were inevitable in life. To the leaders of the three universal civilizations, leaving the central galaxy rashly was undoubtedly a risky action. Han Shao guaranteed that some organizations with ulterior motives would definitely be tempted. Although the three universal civilizations already had a mature operating system, and even if their leaders were assassinated, the operation of the government would not be affected much. However, temporary chaos was inevitable, and they might be targeted by some people because of this. Of course, if any organization dared to do this, they would have no place in the explored universe and would suffer the revenge of death. Their relationship would forever be hatred. Furthermore, with so many armies and beyond grade the success rate of the assassination was basically negligible. However, this did not hinder the plan of deliberately framing them. Han Shao was very suspicious that the three universal civilizations had other intentions for doing this. Was it a self-directed show, pretending that some outsider would assassinate their leader during the ceremony? Then, they would shift the blame to the target and get an excuse to attack them? This direction felt very familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Could it be that I gave them some inspiration? Han Shao had just experienced a backstab not too long ago, and the memory was still fresh in his mind. His thoughts could not help but wander in this direction. With his understanding of the three universal civilizations, it was not impossible for them to do such a thing. The probability of it happening was about 20%, and he could not ask Urinril for confirmation. In the past few days on the planet, he had not been able to contact the leaders of the three universal civilizations. Like the others, he could only stay in the official guest house and wait silently. On the day of the ceremony, Han Shao and a group of guests, including Han Shao, were transported to the venue of the ceremony by official vehicles. The venue was a large hall in the style of the Empire. Countless invited guests could be seen queuing up to enter the venue. No one was making a ruckus. Only the sound of whispers could be heard. The atmosphere was quite solemn. Han Zhao's seat was arranged at the front table, and the other peak beyond grade were seated at the same table as Kasuyi and Kant. After greeting them, Han Shao sat down next to Kasuyi. He glanced at the people at the same table and whispered, "The Mecha Empire didn't come?" "He's here, but it's just a clone." Kasuyi pointed behind him. A steel lump was arranged in the distance, sitting at the edge of the venue. Even though it was separated by a layer of steel, Han Shao could smell Manasan's scent on it. "He won't cause trouble during the ceremony, right?" Han Shao blinked. "Manasan isn't that crazy," Kant interrupted. Today, Kant had turned into a handsome middle-aged space human. His nose was high, his eyes were deep, and his facial features were sharp. He was sitting upright. Han Shao glanced at the security guards at the edge of the venue and whispered, "I have a feeling that it won't go so smoothly. There might be an assassination attempt. We have so many beyond grade sitting below. Who would be so bold?" Sun Hunter said in a muffled voice. "Maybe it's a self-directed act." Han Shao winked. Secret Master could not help but roll his eyes at Han Shao. He snorted and said, "Come on, do you think the three universal civilizations are like you? How can you do such a petty thing?" "So what if it's petty? It's fine as long as it's useful." Han Shao clicked his tongue. "Want to make a bet? You still dare to gamble?" Secret Master was shocked. "Don't you know what kind of luck you have? If my luck is a flawless gem, then your luck is like the moldy green filth on the wall of a smelly gutter. You dare to bet with me, a master of controlling luck? I'm afraid you're doing charity." "Sure, what do you plan to give me?" "I'll bet with Sun Hunter. If I lose, I'll give him to you. How about that?" Han Shao grabbed the head of the little guy on the table with 2 fingers and lifted him up. Sun Hunter, who was being lifted up in the air, had a face full of question marks. "What does it have to do with me? I'll blow you up." Secret Master was speechless. He quickly patted Han Zhao's hand and asked him to put down the confused Sun Hunter. He apologized and then whispered to Han Zhao, "How can you bet with someone else? Although His Excellency Sun Hunter is a little pocket-sized, how can you joke about his size? We have a good relationship. Can't help it." With a flick of his finger, Han Zhao flicked Sun Hunter's head, causing the other party to glare at him angrily. Only then did he chuckle and stop. He had always wanted to do this since his previous life, and he finally got what he wanted. With their equal status, this little joke was not a big deal. If an ordinary beyond grade A dared to tease Sun Hunter like this, they could basically apply for disability protection. "Since you don't like this bet, I'll change it." "Change it to what? I know you have a problem with me. How about this? If you win, I'll stand still and let you beat me for 10 minutes. If I win, you stand still and let me beat you for 10 minutes. Fair, right?" Secret Master simply shut his mouth and turned his head away, too lazy to argue with Han Zhao. "Forget it. Who doesn't know how tanky your indestructible body is? Fair my ass. I still want to live for another 100 years. The people at the table chatted for a while. Suddenly, a group of officers strode into the venue, surrounding their respective leaders. The venue immediately quieted down, and the atmosphere became solemn. The dynasty ruler Urinril, the president of Radiance, Bader, and the old pope of the Arcane Church strode up the stage under everyone's gaze and sat on the specially set seats. Beside them was a podium. Han Zhao had only seen Urinril in person before, but this was the first time he had come into close contact with Bader and the ethereal pope. Although the two of them had different temperaments, they had the same aura of a ruler like Urinril, which made people subconsciously become serious. However, the focus of his observation was not on the two leaders but the personal guards beside them. They were all existences similar to Dark Emperor Claudi. There was a male creature beside Bader. His skin was snow-white, and his body structure was similar to that of a human's, except that he had a straight horn on his forehead, which forced him to keep his hairstyle in the middle. His hair was golden, smooth, and as thick as a lion's mane. It was tied into a braid that reached his waist. He seemed to have some elf bloodline, as his ears were long and pointed. He had deep purple eyes and a well-proportioned mouth, but he did not have a nose. The part where the nose should have been was flat, but it did not look ugly under the aesthetic standards of the humans of the universe. Instead, it was very harmonious. This person was wearing a soft and gorgeous robe, embellished with light gold and ice blue. He exuded an elegant and noble aura, and his temperament was gentle, like the elf king in the legends of some civilizations. This person was the president's personal guard of the Radiance Alliance, a pinnacle beyond grade A, golden ring. Olu's ability was to borrow the power of a specific secondary dimension. It sounded quite similar to Traveler, who had already died, but their combat strength was completely different. This guy was at the same level as the Dark Emperor, able to fight back and forth with Kasui. Han Zhao turned around and looked to the other side. Beside the ethereal pope was a huge guy. He was not the type of pugilist who had trained but was born with a huge body, as if he had part of the giant bloodline. This person was the captain of the Pope's personal guard of the Ethereal Federation, the God's Chosen Wernos, who was also the high priest of the Temple of 10,000 Gods. Compared to Olu's flashy outfit, Werno's appearance and temperament were very low-key, as if he was just an ordinary middle-aged man with wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. His expression was meticulous, and he wore a silver-gray priest robe. If not for his eye-catching size, he might not have been able to be found in a crowd. Olu and Wernos. Han Zhao whispered to himself. These two people were just like the Dark Emperor, usually following their leader and rarely participating in activities outside of their duties. This was the first time he had seen them in person. He had only heard of them before and did not have much interaction with them. Kasui glanced at Han Zhao, leaned over and casually said, This should be your first time seeing the two of them, right? Let me give you a piece of advice. You and Olu can joke around, but don't provoke Wernos. What do you mean? Han Xiao was curious. Although Olu is the personal guard of the leader, his personality is different from Claudi's. He's gentler and not as cold. Other than occasionally showing an inexplicable sense of superiority, he's not a bad guy. However, Wernos, just don't provoke him. Now that you mention it, I'm even more curious. Your Ethereal's ally. Do you know something? Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. I can only say that he's the publicly acknowledged strongest beyond Grade A, so he naturally has his reasons. Kasuyi smiled faintly. At this moment, Uranril stood in front of the podium, looked around, and spoke loudly. Friends and guests, today, in order to honor all the heroes who have made great contributions to the Intelligent Plague disaster, we hereby hold a grand award ceremony to award the honor to every hero who has made outstanding contributions. First of all, on behalf of the 3 universal civilizations, I would like to extend my warmest congratulations to the heroes of the universe who have received the Medal of Honor and the Title of Honor today. We've been through storms and storms together, and we've experienced disaster after disaster. Now, our wills are as strong as an impregnable fortress, and we've once again stepped on a new disaster. Ever since the Galactic Society was officially established at the end of the exploration era, generations of heroes with a sense of responsibility for history have sacrificed themselves for the greater good. They have contributed countless efforts to our universe, leading us to overcome difficulties one after another and shaping the cornerstone of the Galactic Society today. Although many people have passed away, their radiance will always be passed down with our reproduction generation after generation. Only by crossing new mountains can we see a wider distance. Over the years, the Galactic Society has achieved many achievements under the leadership of the 3 universal civilizations. We have cut through all obstacles, constantly explored the unknown universe, and expanded our territory. Now, the flickering world we are in is a milestone achievement, the full fruit of our exploration. To be able to achieve such an achievement, we can't do without the cooperation of the entire Galactic Society. The Galactic Society is an inseparable whole, and everyone's contributions are indispensable. The bonds of order connect us, forging a never-ending pioneering spirit, allowing us to not be afraid of all difficulties and obstacles. Anyone who tries to destroy this order and unity will be the enemy of the entire universe. The media broadcasted Uranril's speech to the entire universe. After she finished speaking, there was a tsunami of applause. Han Xiao and the other beyond grade as also gave her face and clapped a few times. Han Xiao could hear the hidden meaning in Uranril's words. She emphasized the importance of the collective, emphasized the correctness and results of the leaders of the 3 universal civilizations, and also vaguely stabbed the Supercluster Alliance and the Mecha Empire. Although she did not say it explicitly, everyone knew who she was hinting at by those who destroy the order and unity of the Galactic Society. Bader and the Pope of Ethereal also came up to give a short speech. Then, they entered the formal commendation process. The meritorious people came up to the stage one by one, accepted the awards from the leaders of the different civilizations, and gave a speech. Some people even had to answer 1 or 2 questions from the reporters. The process was all the same. The atmosphere of this commendation ceremony was formal and serious, and there would be no entertainment performances. It was like a large-scale report to publicize the results of their work to the entire universe. Entertainment was not considered, and everyone could only sit and wait for their names to be called. Time passed very quickly while they were in a daze. The commendation ceremony soon came to an end, and there was only one person left. Everyone's eyes were focused on Han Xiao. Black Star, you limited the outflow of the Intelligent Plague virus and discovered the true face of the virus core at the critical moment. You reversed our wrong strategy and helped us reformulate the plan, changing the fate of the disaster. At the same time, you seized the virus and destroyed it during the actual operation, completely eliminating the hidden dangers and preventing the second outbreak of the intelligent plague. You saved countless lives. Your contribution is huge, and you are hereby awarded. Hearing Urinril's voice, Han Shao stood up, walked up to the stage, and shook hands with the three leaders. Below the stage, countless media reporters recorded and took photos. They purposely turned on their flashes, illuminating the stage in white. Black Star has many good qualities. He's determined, flexible, and principled. Bader said a lot of praises before finally concluding. In view of Black Star's contributions, we've decided to award him the Galaxy Medal together. As soon as he said that, the many reporters and guests below the stage held their breaths. The Galaxy Medal was the highest symbol of honor that the three universal civilizations had jointly set up since the establishment of the structure. It was the highest honor in the explored universe, and there were very few people who had received this medal in history. Although many people had expected this, they were still shocked when it actually happened. They always felt that although Black Star's contributions were huge, there was still a certain distance between him and this medal. Now, it seemed like the three universal civilizations were deliberately supporting him. No matter what they thought, the honor was real. The applause below the stage was thunderous. Clap, 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 clap. Amidst the warm applause, Urinril took out a medal that was as dazzling as the starry sky and placed it in her palm. The other two reached out and handed it to Han Shao together. The scene seemed to be frozen. The flashes below the stage flickered, recording this historic scene. The commotion lasted for a long time, and it was only after dozens of seconds that the commotion gradually died down. Han Shao reached out to pick up the medal, pinned it to his chest, and shook hands with the three of them again. Only then did he come to the podium, cough, and speak. Thank you to the Red Empire, the Radiant Federation, and the Arcane Church for your kindness. It's my honor to receive this honor. As a part of the explored universe, I have the responsibility and obligation to maintain the stability and prosperity of the universe. After reading a long speech according to the script, Han Shao looked up at the clock on the wall of the hall and smiled. I'm the last person to receive the medal. Since the ceremony is about to end, I won't make a long speech. What I said is about the same. Everyone is probably tired. The people below the stage laughed kindly. Whether it was from the bottom of their hearts or fake laughter, the effect was achieved. This kind of occasion could not tolerate mavericks who did not know how to respect others. Han Shao nodded with a smile. In short, you can tell what kind of person I am from what I've done so far. I believe the Galactic Society has its own views, so I don't need to elaborate here. So, let's quickly get to the question and answer session. Don't waste everyone's time to go back and take a nap. Does anyone have a question? Hearing this, many reporters raised their hands, hoping that they would be chosen. Han Shao was about to choose a person when a reporter in the crowd stood up and said, Your Excellency, the intelligent civilization. Your Excellency Black Star, I heard that the mechanic Emperor Manison also made a huge contribution to the intelligent plague. Without him, the three universal civilizations would not have found the location of the virus core. It can be said that 1/3 or even half of your Galaxy Medal belongs to Manison. However, in this award ceremony, Your Excellency Mechanic Emperor did not receive any honor. You seem to have forgotten about this person, purposely ignoring his contributions. You even accepted the medal with a clear conscience. What do you think of this? As soon as he said that, the venue, which was originally quite lively, suddenly fell silent as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over it. Everyone subconsciously moved their gazes and looked at Manison of the Mecha Empire, who had been standing at the edge of the venue without moving. Han Shao narrowed his eyes and carefully sized up the reporter who asked the question. He saw a faint sneer on the other party's face. He obviously wanted to embarrass him and the three universal civilizations in public. Chapter 1156. Just as he was asking questions, Ernrel, Balder, and the Pope's gazes landed on him. Their gazes were deep and meaningful. The nameplate on this reporter's chest had his name written on it. His name was Portus, and he worked in a large news media channel in the primeval Star River. His position was not low, or else he would not have been in charge of interviews with the three universal civilizations on behalf of his own media company. He had also participated in many different press conferences of the three universal civilizations, and his performance had always been normal. Han Zhao's first suspicion was the Mecha Empire, but he quickly dismissed that thought. Old Manison wished he could pretend to be an ostrich and keep a low profile. This act of hiring someone to question him looked like he was standing up for himself, but in reality, he was just adding fuel to the fire. Manison was not as humorous as me. Although he had a motive, the possibility was very low. Therefore, the biggest suspect was still the Supercluster Alliance, whose conflict was almost public. They wanted to sow discord and cause trouble for the three universal civilizations in front of the public, and the cost was extremely low. As long as they took out an astronomical amount of anas, the reporters would naturally be tempted. In such a big occasion, the negative impact of an inappropriate question would be magnified. The identity of a reporter was a protective layer, and using words to convict someone was adding fuel to the fire. The three universal civilizations naturally did not want to expand the impact, so they would not arrest the person who asked the question, nor would they threaten him afterward. As a ruler, although they were gangsters, they still needed to maintain their image. If they wanted to settle the score, they would go after the mastermind. The surrounding reporters all looked at Portus in surprise, and a commotion broke out. "Are you crazy? Quickly apologize and sit down. You don't want to stay in this industry anymore." Many reporters who knew him scolded him in a low voice, wanting to pull him down. However, Portus stood still and stared straight at Han Xiao, as if he would not stop until Han Xiao said something. Han Xiao pressed his hands on the podium and slowly said, "Reporter friend, I don't seem to have asked you a question." "So, you're avoiding this question?" Portus turned a deaf ear to him. His gaze was sharp and aggressive. "Yo, he's a bit like a Western reporter. You guys are always thinking about making big news." Han Xiao smiled faintly. "I believe that the Galactic Society has a unified view of the Mecha Empire's actions, but from the looks of it, you seem to want to stand up for him? I'm just asking some questions that the public may be curious about based on the professional ethics of a reporter." Portus straightened his back, looking dutiful. "Alright, this question is a bit sensitive. Although I didn't call you, I can answer it once. Just this once." Han Xiao tapped his finger on the podium and said in a casual tone, "Manison has indeed made contributions. This is an undeniable fact, but your statement is wrong. In fact, Manison discovered the problem with the virus core earlier than I did, so this medal should have belonged to him. However, because of his selfishness, he deliberately did not report what he knew. If I had not pointed it out on the spot, he definitely would not have revealed this crucial information. This way, the three universal civilizations will always be in the dark, and the universe will still be shrouded in the shadow of the intelligent plague." "So, you admit that His Excellency the Mecha Empire should share the Galaxy Medal with you? You also think that it's unfair that he didn't get the medal?" Portus pressed. "I only admit that he has made some contributions, not that he should get the medal. Don't distort my meaning. Furthermore, Manison's final decision is enough to make all of us re-examine his motives. Your Excellency Black Star, please don't go off topic. We're not talking about His Excellency the Mecha Empire's decision, but his contributions." Portus was very skilled at avoiding the important point. No, these two can't be separated. Part of my contribution comes from stopping the Mecha Empire's plan. If he didn't do anything, my contribution would be limited. If you think that he should get half of the galaxy medal based on this logic, there's nothing wrong with that. Speaking of which, if we give him the medal, those who don't know will think that he did a good deed, and it will be unfair to all the contributors, including me. I believe that the three universal civilizations must have thought deeply before making such a decision. But Machina, the question has been answered. You can sit down. There are still others who want to ask questions. Please don't break the rules again and again, or please leave immediately. Han Xiao calmly interrupted Portus. The other party's goal was to cause trouble. No matter what he said, they would argue back. Han Xiao's explanation was enough. He would never be able to make the other party speechless. As long as he showed a complete attitude, most of the audience would naturally listen. Continuing to argue would not only be meaningless, but it would also damage his image. Seeing the nearby guards staring at him unkindly, Portus could only sit down resentfully. Facing the disdainful, disgusted, and complicated gazes of his peers, Portus suppressed the fear in his heart and tried his best to make himself look calm. He controlled his hands and feet from trembling and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Phew, I've finally completed the request. The president, who is watching the live broadcast, is probably going crazy from anger. Luckily, this has nothing to do with me anymore. I'll resign immediately when I get back. I don't care if the news channel will be suppressed or not. What's the point of working after getting paid? Portus fantasized about the future, only feeling that a beautiful life was waving at him. The image in his memory was still very clear. Not long ago, some mysterious people contacted him, intending to use a large sum of money to make him cause trouble on today's occasion. He knew that as long as he did this, his career would come to an end. Even if the upper echelons of the three universal civilizations were too lazy to deal with a small fry like him, the people below would take action spontaneously and ask the media industry to ban him. He was already mentally prepared for this. Not only was the amount proposed by the employer tempting, but the other party also had a huge background. Since they had come looking for him, as a small reporter, he had no choice but to do it. Rejecting them would not end well either, so he did not have much choice. Although today's action would lead to a ban and investigation in the industry, not only did the employer give him money, but they also promised to arrange a way out, allowing him to change his appearance and move to their territory to avoid the influence of the three universal civilizations. Being a rich man for the rest of his life, and enjoying this money that he would never be able to spend in his lifetime. This was Portus' wish. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with Black Star's answer, the atmosphere quickly returned to normal. The reporters continued to ask questions enthusiastically, pretending that the little episode just now did not happen. From the beginning to the end, the expressions of Urinril and the other two did not change at all. Manison was silent the entire time, with no intention of interrupting at all. It was as if his mind had wandered off, thinking about what to eat for dinner. No one came out to cause trouble again. Han Xiao answered a few friendly questions before returning to his seat. The leaders of the three universal civilizations said some more pleasantries, and only then did the award ceremony come to a successful end. The guests left the venue one after another, and the leaders of the three universal civilizations left the venue under the escort of the guards. Han Xiao exchanged a few words with the Beyond Grade, as before leaving through the VIP passage. As soon as he walked out of the venue, he received a message from Sylvia. Army Commander, I watched the live broadcast. How should we deal with that reporter, Portus? Sylvia went straight to the point. What do you plan to do? Get rid of him? Don't. Getting rid of him will only vent our anger, and it will also give the Supercluster Alliance something to use against them. There's no need for that. The three universal civilizations will make it impossible for him to survive. That's enough. So, we don't have to do anything. Let me think. Han Shao thought for a few seconds, and his expression gradually became playful. Monitor the flow of funds in all his account. The Supercluster Alliance will definitely think of ways to launder money and transfer the reward to his account. As long as they find a large amount of income, they will hack his account and donate all the money he collected and his normal savings. Let him work for free? Heh, that's bad. I like this plan. Sylvia's eyes sparkled, and she hung up the communication. Han Shao left the quantum network and did not take Portis seriously. He would not care too much about a tool that was being used. He quickly threw this matter to the back of his mind. At the same time, he took off the galaxy medal on his chest and looked at it carefully. The item introduction on the interface showed that this medal gave him a new universe legendary point, Galaxy Medal Recipient. At the same time, it also had an additional effect. The basic relationship between the three universal civilizations and their vassal factions was solidified to respect, which was equivalent to an innate relationship starting from 3,000 contribution points. The number of factions is enough. At the very least, it will give me a legendary point. Han Shao nodded with satisfaction. He did not have much hope for this kind of honor medal, and it was already a pleasant surprise to have an additional reward. He was not picky anyway. At this time, 2 dynasty officers walked out from the corner in front and blocked his path, as if they were there to welcome him. Your Excellency Black Star, the 3 leaders would like to see you. Han Shao paused and nodded. Lead the way. At the same time, in the temporary jurisdiction of the Supercluster Alliance in the Flickering World, the emissaries of each ally secretly met in a round-table conference room through remote projections. A virtual screen floated in the middle of the round table, showing the live broadcast of the awards ceremony. After watching the live broadcast, many of the emissaries of the Supercluster civilizations shook their heads. The effect is SOSO, not reaching the expected impact. An ordinary reporter can only do this much. I told you not to have too much hope. It's enough as long as it has a little effect. Now that the prestige of the 3 universal civilizations has been consolidated, attacking them will only add up. This is just a minor detail after all. Strength is the most important principle. That's right. So let's move on from this topic for now. Let's get back to what's really important. Where were we earlier? Speaking of the various funding and support agencies, it's time to act collectively, such as those Immortals organizations. This time, we have to strike first and not wait for the 3 universal civilizations to make a move before we counterattack. The stowaways we sent in the first exploration phase can be officially activated. The 3 universal civilizations control the door to the Flickering World, and we're alone. If we want to obtain an endless supply of resources and reinforcements, we have to count on these chess pieces buried in the first phase. The first batch of targets has also been chosen. Our regular army will not move, and everything will be left to those proxy organizations. Before the 3 universal civilizations officially intervene, try to snatch as much territory as possible in the free competition zone. What did the Beyond Grade A Development Union say? They're basically neutral, but Black Star claims to have a personal grudge with Moto, so his attitude is unclear for now. Troublesome guy. Hey, emissary of Moto, when the conflict officially breaks out, we might not have the energy to deal with you guys. Think of a way by then. If there's no other way, just sacrifice yourselves to stall Black Star. The big picture is more important. All right, everyone, the success of this operation will determine the future of our respective civilizations. Whether we'll get a chance to advance further or be ruled by others forever. No matter the cost, we can only succeed, not fail. Chapter 1157. Han Shao followed the two dynasty officers through the heavily guarded corridor and came to a large office that had been converted into the temporary office of the three rulers. At this time, the door to the reception room in the deepest part was tightly shut. The secretary of the dynasty ruler put down his work and greeted him with a respectful tone. "Your Excellency Black Star, the three rulers are still talking. They'll probably be done soon. Please wait for a moment." "Okay, I'll sit by the side for a while." Han Shao found a seat and sat down. The secretary asked someone to serve him drinks and sat across from Han Shao. In order not to let Black Star feel left out, the secretary took the initiative to be the escort and started chatting. Having been in the dynasty for decades, Han Shao knew quite a few high-ranking officials. This was not the first time he had interacted with the Secretary-General, so the conversation was rather casual. As the two of them chatted, the topic quickly shifted to the small incident that happened during the ceremony. "Your Excellency Black Star, what do you think of that reporter?" the secretary asked. "Just a pitiful, unlucky guy." "Indeed." The secretary smiled. When he was chosen, his career was destined to be affected. It's not hard to understand why he finally decided to take the gamble that maximized his benefit. I thought that a position like yours would have to be politically correct, saying that he should take the initiative to expose the crimes of the mastermind. We're all about political correctness, but we have to do practical things. The higher-ups don't like people who only know how to shout slogans. The secretary shook his head. He's not a citizen of our civilization, and there's no patriotism in him. The chances of him taking the initiative to expose are very low. What can he get by reporting to us? A meager reward or a banner? Han Shao casually teased. You're quite humorous, but even that's wishful thinking. He'll most likely get a demotion. He was originally a big-name reporter in charge of attending official news events like ours. It's a top position, but if he exposed this matter, he won't receive any preferential treatment. You also understand that we're a huge system. Every department not only works for the entire civilization but also considers their own political achievement. Therefore, why would the news department take the risk of letting a suspicious reporter continue to attend official events? They would most likely inform the higher-ups of the media channel that this reporter works for. Therefore, his company will consciously transfer him back to another news channel. Doesn't this mean that this person is worth using? Is it necessary? Wouldn't it be easier to change to someone else? What kind of irreplaceable character is he? You're a little cold-blooded. Aren't you afraid of disappointing others? Han Shao raised his eyebrows. Do you think that we will fight over a small reporter and let others see how protective we are of a small reporter? This will increase the confidence of outsiders in working with us, and make it more likely that people will come to us to expose this matter in the future? The Secretary-General laughed. Isn't that good? Han Shao was interested. Different people have different logic when dealing with things at different levels. At our level, most of the time, the way we deal with things is the opposite of the logic of ordinary people. Basically, it's a combination of many factors. The Secretary-General blinked and said, "If it's someone with a higher status or an organization with a certain amount of power, we might do as you said. But a small reporter? We won't waste our energy on him. The public opinion war between us and the supercluster has been going on secretly. This is not the first time something like this has happened. If he doesn't have any connections, he might not even be able to get a place in our protection plan. In the end, he's not an important person, so we won't pay too much attention to him." "How come I didn't know that you were so bold before?" Han Shao looked up and down. "I'm just telling the truth. Although the public power is great, the resources to exercise public power are limited. In the end, it's a problem of distribution." The Secretary-General smacked his lips and said, Putting yourself in their shoes, there's no benefit in taking the initiative to expose them, so it's better to agree to the behind-the-scenes instigator. At least on the surface, you can get a large sum of money, and what you do is within the scope of your normal duties. You didn't cross the line. After all, it's the reporter's freedom to ask questions. We can't force him. Can't we? At least in name. Official activities don't have a budget for friendly questions. We can only rely on authority to make people aware. The Secretary General smiled. It's just that authority doesn't always work. There are many reporters who dare to make things difficult for us. Some do it for performance, some are ordered by others. All kinds of situations have happened before. How can things remain the same? Han Xiao stroked his chin and suddenly said, "Why do I feel like you're implying something else when you say this to me? Haha, you saw through me. Actually, I wanted to test how the Black Star Corps plans to deal with this reporter. With your swift and decisive methods, you must have already made arrangements." The Secretary General smiled. "What's swift and decisive? You can just say that I'm narrow-minded." Han Xiao cursed in his mind and casually explained his plan. "It's good that you didn't fall for it. It seems like my reminder was unnecessary." The Secretary General smiled and nodded. "It's so tiring to chat with you. Don't hide anything. Just say it." Han Xiao was helpless. "Haha, we hope to deal with it lightly and not threaten this reporter, so we need your cooperation. If this person's life is threatened, it will be easy for people to write about it. I think it's useless even if you don't want to do it. Maybe the mastermind behind this has already prepared to kill someone and frame them. They can still smear the name." The Secretary General crossed his hands and said, "I understand your concerns. There is indeed such a possibility, but the probability is very low. First of all, this kind of accusation is neither painful nor beneficial to the overall situation. We simply don't want to cause trouble. But if someone is trying to frame someone, there will definitely be flaws and it will be easy to overturn the case. Also, how many people will care about the life and death of a reporter? Once the publicity is started, the power behind the scenes will definitely be exposed. Anyone with a discerning eye can see it. And because the person involved this time is a reporter, doing this will also ruin the good impression of the media industry. If we want to promote it, we can't do it without their cooperation. With so many factors, the mastermind behind this is not willing to lose the big picture. Similarly, this is also the reason why we're dealing with it lightly." Hearing this, Han Xiao did not comment. The higher one's level, the wider one's knowledge was. The improvement in his methods over the years came from interacting with people of different levels. After chatting for a while, Han Xiao suddenly thought of something and changed the topic. Urianril's term should be ending soon, right? In his previous life, not long after the Flickering World storyline ended, the dynasty had a new ruler. Counting the days, it should be ending soon. The Secretary General paused and subconsciously lowered his voice. "I can't say exactly how long it will take. Alright, let's talk about you. After Urianril retires, there will be a change in your position, right? Is there any news? When the ruler retires, my term as the Secretary General will end. My position hasn't been decided yet, but I'll definitely be sent out to manage the country. There's an 80% chance that I'll be transferred to the same level." Just as Han Xiao was about to ask casually, the door of the reception room finally opened. The Secretary General stopped talking and made an inviting gesture. Seeing this, Han Xiao got up and walked into the reception room. He immediately saw the three leaders sitting behind the table, with their respective beyond grade personal guards beside them. The door closed behind him, and Han Xiao casually greeted them. Dark Emperor Claudi nodded slightly and did not intend to speak. On the other hand, Ulla glanced at Han Xiao from head to toe and slowly said, "You captured quite a few of my friends some time ago. It's a pity that I wasn't there, or you wouldn't have been able to do it. Hello, it's our first time meeting." Nice to meet you. Sensing the hostility in Olu's tone, Han Xiao remained indifferent. He maintained his smile and did not respond at all. Humph. Olu snorted and did not continue speaking. He raised his head slightly and revealed an arrogant posture, although he did not have nostrils. The first impression this guy left on Han Xiao was arrogance. Although Kasuyi said that Olu was more gentle, his frame of reference was the Dark Emperor, who was known for being cold. Han Xiao did not expect Olu to be very friendly. Furthermore, he had captured a few Radiance allies not long ago, so it would be strange if Olu had a good expression. On the other side, Wernos did not even open his eyes, as if he was asleep. He had no intention of paying attention to Han Xiao at all, as if he did not see him. Among the three of them, Han Xiao was the most curious about Wernos. In his previous life, the Dark Emperor and Olu's two personal guards had both entered the main battlefield and sacrificed themselves in the World Tree War. Only Wernos had never taken action, and his past achievements could be counted on one hand. He was extremely mysterious. Generally speaking, when mentioning Beyond Grade as, Wernos was rarely included because he basically did not fight with others. He was an unusual existence like Sorokin, but the two of them happened to be on opposite ends of the spectrum. This time, the dynasty ruler Urinril spoke. Black Star, how do you feel after receiving the Galaxy Medal? I'm flattered. Han Xiao was expressionless. But you don't seem very satisfied? You saw through me. Yes, I'm actually worried. Worried about what? If I make new contributions to the universe in the future, will you give me a second or third Galaxy Medal? I feel like I have to open a warehouse to store this thing. Who knows, one day I won't be able to store it. How distressing. Han Xiao sighed. Urinril? ? Is that what you're saying? Let's cut the pleasantries. You didn't call me here just to encourage me, right? If you have something to say, just say it. Han Xiao shrugged. He had been pretending for the entire day, so he did not want to be polite anymore. Bader pondered for a moment before saying, Then, let's get straight to the point. I believe you've also heard from other channels that our conflict with the Supercluster Alliance is about to start. As the leader of the private warlords in the Flickering World, the Black Star Corps needs your help. Han Xiao frowned. The three universal civilizations had been trying to get the Beyond Grade A Association to help them deal with the Supercluster Alliance. They had even decided to use the monopoly of class knowledge as a bargaining chip, but the association had never agreed. The three universal civilizations did not do anything after that, but now they were starting again. You should know the results of the Beyond Grade A Development Union's discussion some time ago, right? I thought that was the answer, Han Xiao said. That's right. We know that the Beyond Grade A Association intends to stay neutral, but that's your agreement, not ours, Ethereal's Pope said calmly. Urinril also added, Black Star, we hope you can do something about this. The Red Empire had given their territory to their Beyond Grade A allies precisely because they hoped that their allies would contribute at this time. However, the establishment of the Development Union had exceeded their expectations, and their allies now wanted to stay neutral. Of course, they would not agree. Although the Black Star Corps' territory was a reward for meritorious service, giving it out also had a purpose. If it did not achieve the effect that the dynasty wanted, they would not give up so easily. I thought we had reached a consensus on this issue, but it seems like you've misunderstood my position. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. Don't misunderstand. We know what you mean, but this is not beyond the scope of our agreement, Bader said with a deep voice. The three universal civilizations were trying to build momentum for Black Star because they wanted to find a spokesperson to speak for them in the association. With Han Xiao as a link, they could influence the Development Union through him. At this juncture, the spokesperson would come in handy. The Supercluster Alliance also had Beyond Grade as, so the three universal civilizations would not easily allow their allies to go on strike. If I do this, I'll deviate from the united front and lose the greater picture. Han Shao waved his hands. Don't worry, we've considered this and have already chosen an entry point for you. Ethereal's Pope leaned forward. Since you've publicly stated that you have a personal grudge with the Moto civilization, you can use this as a reason to make more beyond grade as intervene without damaging your reputation in the association. You think it won't be damaged just because you say so? No way. Han Shao waved his hands. Then let's each take a step back. We won't force you to participate in the entire event, but if the Beyond Grade as of the Supercluster Alliance take action, I hope the Development Union will respond. Since you've shouted the slogan of regulating all Beyond Grade A conflicts, you should follow through to the end. This happens to be within your scope of responsibility. Han Shao immediately understood the three universal civilizations plan. He snorted in his heart and put on a troubled expression as he explained, but in this case, the Beyond Grade as who are willing to stand up for the Supercluster Alliance will definitely be their direct subordinate. You have your own direct subordinates too, so isn't it just right for the direct subordinates to fight the direct subordinates? If you insist on the association taking action, it will more or less be biased. It doesn't seem appropriate. Bader's tone became heavier as he said with dissatisfaction, According to what you've said, what do we still need you allies for? Han Shao raised his brows and said, If you have the ability, cancel the alliance with all the Beyond Grade as. Bader was immediately speechless. You're the best, so I'll shut up. Chapter 1158. After scolding Bader, Han Xiaoxin felt much better. Now, he was also the special consultant of the Federation and the Church in name, but the grudges from before had not disappeared. He had only suppressed them in his heart. This was the first time he had been rude to the leaders of the three universal civilizations, and it felt pretty good. Seeing this, Urinril took over and said with a serious expression, Black Star, this is very important. I hope you can put forward a proposal in the association. Han Shao was a little more reserved when dealing with the dynasty ruler, but he still did not give in. He said, The Development Union shouldn't be biased. If we act according to your request, your direct members will take action first. Should we stop them? If we do, will you accept mediation? If we treat them differently, won't we still be helping them? Ahem. Anyway, you understand what I mean. I personally have a reason to deal with Moto, and I've told them in advance. It's not going against the United Front, but it's better for the association to remain neutral. He knew what the three universal civilizations were planning. The purpose of the Development Union was to mediate all Beyond Grade A conflict. The three universal civilizations wanted to make an issue of this and turn the association into an indirect third-party ally. If the supercluster used their direct members, they would attack them. If the three universal civilizations used their direct members, they would pretend they did not see anything. This way, the final effect would make people think that the Development Union was still the three universal civilizations' henchmen. Of course, Han Shao could not agree. He was the vice president of the Beyond Grade A Association and an ally supported by the three universal civilizations. His identity was sensitive, and both sides needed him. Therefore, he could not easily take the wrong path. The three universal civilizations had the advantage in terms of direct Beyond Grade as, so they had no reason to restrict their own advantages. Therefore, they would most likely not agree to the association's way of treating them equally. As expected, after hearing what Han Shao said, the three universal civilizations' leaders rejected this proposal. As rulers, they could not give the association a higher law enforcement authority than them. The ethereal Pope slowly said, Black Star, let us speak openly. We understand your position very well. The Mecha Empire wants to create opposition, but you're different. You don't want to separate the beyond grade as from us, and you don't reject working with us. That's why we have high hopes for you. Therefore, this matter can actually be discussed. Just tell us what you want. That's right. My goal is to form a more equal cooperative relationship between the beyond grade as and the advanced civilizations, not to become your vassals. As for the premise of equality, you have to at least loosen most of the shackles on the beyond grade such as the monopoly of class knowledge. Isn't this the deal we proposed before? We used the removal of the knowledge monopoly as a bargaining chip in exchange for the development union to deal with the supercluster alliance, but you didn't agree. How should I put it? In the eyes of many beyond grade using this to make a deal is no different from blackmailing and compromising. Another goal of the association is to form a united front. We don't want to be forced to continue being involved in faction dispute. Therefore, most people hope that the three universal civilizations will unconditionally loosen the many restrictions, including the knowledge monopoly, and reform the alliance system. After that, we'll be willing to talk about new terms of cooperation. This is a matter of order. Han Xiao explained the association's request. The Beyond Grade A United Front was actually the same as a union strike. It was to improve the welfare of the entire class and fight for better treatment for themselves. Therefore, they were quite united before the benefits were in their hand. If we do that, what form of cooperation do you hope to achieve? The ethereal Pope threw the question back. To be honest, the association's opinion is not unified for the time being, but more people suggest to reduce the nature of allies and strengthen the employment relationship. In order to reduce the coercion and increase the freedom, the cooperation will no longer be limited to one company. Also, outside of the employment relationship, we won't suffer any retaliation from faction disputes. Han Xiao explained the expectations of the development union. There were too many twists and turns in this. The needs of the advanced civilization allies were different from those of the neutral beyond grade so it would be difficult to obtain a result that everyone was satisfied with when they had different standpoints. The three leaders shook their heads and did not agree. Neither side was willing to give in, so this meeting could only end without reaching a consensus. Striding out of the reception room, Han Xiao sighed and felt somewhat helpless. As his position in the universe grew higher and higher, the choices he faced every day became more and more critical. Every choice could have a profound impact on his own development. If he was not careful, he would deviate from the path, and it would be difficult to fix. Only by experiencing this personally could he understand the dangers involved. At the same time, after Han Xiao left, the three leaders in the reception room exchanged glances. Looks like there's no need to count on the development union to provide any help. Black Star is really not careless at all. When he received benefits, he had a clear conscience. When we asked for repayment, he also rejected without any shame. His principles are really strong, Bader said. Come on, this isn't our main goal for building momentum for him. Rejection is to be expected. If this little benefit can be used to control a peak beyond grade A, then it's too simple. There's nothing wrong with Black Star cherishing his reputation, but we can't lose the big picture for small gains. We still need him to act as a link in the future to guide the development union. It's just that their request is a little whimsical. The Beyond Grade A group can't be without limits. If we completely remove their shackles, there will definitely be hidden dangers in the future. We don't have the time to deal with it now. Let's continue to put the negotiations aside and observe Black Star. No matter what, letting him take the position will definitely be better than the Mecha Empire. Under the strong publicity of the three universal civilizations, the award ceremony was broadcasted in various regions of the major star fields, causing widespread discussion among countless galactic residents. Among them, the most talked about one was Han Xiao. Some people felt that Black Star deserved the Galaxy Medal, while others felt that his contributions were not great enough and could not be compared to the previous Galaxy Medal winners. However, no matter what, the truth could not be changed. Counting Han Zhao's deeds in detail, catching ES God, stopping the disaster, fighting the Mecha Empire, and contributing to the stability of the universe, most people still had a positive attitude. However, the Galactic Society's discussion of the awards ceremony did not last for more than a few days before a sudden change attracted the attention of the entire universe. Just a few days after the awards ceremony ended, the largest armed conflict to date suddenly broke out in the free competition zone of the fourth exploration phase of the flickering world. Many organizations attacked multiple planet strongholds without any warning, as if they had planned it beforehand. The free competition zone suddenly fell into chaos. Rumble, rumble! The earth trembled incessantly. Rows of heavy ground combat vehicles that were more than 10 meters tall pushed forward. Everywhere they passed, the forests collapsed, the forts shattered, and the ground defense lines were breached. Countless turrets and traps turned into pieces on the ground. Groups of armored soldiers raised their weapons and fired wildly at the invaders. Hot beams of light shot out from the muzzles, but the agile figures of supers shuttled through the artillery fire, destroying one squad after another and easily tearing apart the defenders' battle line. The soil splashed up from the explosions buried the corpses of the soldiers wrapped in broken armor. The low-altitude vehicles in the sky cooperated with each other and provided firepower support from the high altitude. The cannons on the ships spat out dense tongues of fire and bombarded the protective shields of the fortresses, causing electric arcs and sparks to fly everywhere. The verdant forests were reduced to charred debris under the bombardment, and the buildings collapsed one after another in the bombardment. This was a resource planet located in the middle of the free competition zone. Originally, it was discovered by a vassal star system civilization under the three universal civilizations and built a stronghold there. However, it was suddenly attacked today. The attackers were a large fleet, and their spaceships had the same symbol, a snowflake-shaped emblem with two spears crisscrossing at the bottom. It represented an immortal organization called Northern Battlefront, which had been established not long ago and had not made any big moves in the free competition zone. Who would have thought that they would suddenly attack a planet occupied by a star system civilization without warning? This Northern Battlefront fleet sent out more than 100,000 Grade B players, as well as a large number of battleships and ground combat equipment. Not long after the battle started, the stronghold's defense forces were completely defeated and could not withstand the Northern Battlefront's attack. An allied player organization like the Northern Battlefront was formed by a large number of guilds, and they had also recruited many independent players who had brought money into the organization. They were very strong and could support a certain scale of galactic war. After all, after surviving in the galaxy for 4 versions, the guilds had accumulated a certain amount of capital. Currently, there were tens of millions of active players in the entire galaxy. The Black Star Corps had recruited more than 10 million people and was already the largest player faction. The remaining people were scattered in various organizations, and their numbers were also large. The Guild Alliance had recruited quite a number of people. There was also a group of players from the 3 universal civilizations in the stronghold, only 100 or 200 of them. They had no choice but to fight their way out. However, they were quickly drowned by the Northern Battlefront army and could not do anything. A Northern Battlefront battleship hovered high in the sky. In the command room, the leader of the Northern Battlefront looked down at the one-sided battle and smiled with satisfaction. Victory is right in front of us. Quickly finish off the enemy. We still have other strongholds to attack. He was the leader of the Northern Battlefront's many allied guilds and was in charge of operating the organization. His ID was Fire of the North Sea, and he was the president of a large club in Europe. Where are we going next? Another upper echelon of the allied guild asked. We'll attack whoever is closest to us. Sweep all the way. Fire of the North Sea waved his hand in high spirits. The Northern Battlefront communicated with the NPC organizations in the name of the organization and reached an agreement with the Supercluster Alliance. As an agent, they would help the Supercluster Alliance conquer cities. Every time they conquered a stronghold, they would receive additional rewards. Furthermore, they would not have to spend any effort to occupy the planet. The Supercluster Alliance would be in charge of development and provide them with a high share of resources, which was equivalent to an endless stream of funds. At the same time, during the war, the Supercluster Alliance would also provide resource support, material purchase discounts, and other benefits. Not only the Northern Battlefront, but the Galactic Business Alliance, the 5C Alliance, and many other player guild alliances had also reached an agreement with the Supercluster Alliance and temporarily fought for them. The conflict between the three universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance was already an open secret. The Supercluster Alliance would not be afraid of the three universal civilizations and the Black Star Corps like the smaller factions in the past. The clubs of the various countries saw an opportunity and started a national war through the battle between the two factions. Starting a national war was partly for entertainment, but it was also more for benefit. First, it was to transition from an ordinary organization to a supercluster faction through this channel. Second, it was to recruit more independent players through the war and strengthen the organization. Third, it was to speculate in the war and ask for a share of the various resources. Fourth, it was because of the main storyline mission of the faction war. Fifth, it was to provide outside help for this season's Pro League in advance and alleviate the situation of the Black Star Corps dominating the game. Now that the Supercluster Alliance had made the first move, the Northern Battlefront and the other guild alliances had started to expand the territory of the Supercluster Alliance in the free competition zone, which led to the current situation. Fire of the North Sea opened the star map and looked at the real-time expansion of the Supercluster Alliance's territory in the free competition zone. He clenched his fists excitedly. This is an unprecedented event. The Black Star Corps' advantage in the flickering world is too great. Only if the Supercluster Alliance that we support wins can we turn the tables and obtain the same amount of resources. The same scene played out on many planets in the free competition zone. Apart from the player guild alliances, there were also other private armed organizations fighting for territories for the Supercluster Alliance. About 2,400 planets were invaded on the same day, and they were all resource planets, transportation hubs, or other strategic locations. Up until now, the fourth exploration phase had basically been completed, and the Super Star Cluster Alliance could accurately choose the most valuable targets to attack. All of a sudden, the Supercluster Alliance's territory increased tremendously, firmly occupying the core areas of several star clusters in the free competition zone. With this as their foundation, they started to expand, greedily seizing the planets and strongholds that other organizations had developed, taking a large amount of territory into their hands and starting to build the deep defense line in their strategic blueprint. Facing the sudden attack of the Supercluster Alliance, the entire world was shocked. Galaxy Chronicles. The First World Server War. On February 25, year 732, the three universal civilizations held a commendation ceremony to give Black Star a Galaxy Medal. On February 29, year 732, a large-scale armed invasion occurred in the free competition zone of the flickering world. The Supercluster Alliance ordered many armed organizations to expand their territory, and this incident became the fuse for the official conflict between the three universal civilizations and them. It also opened the prelude to the First National War, known as the Eve Incident. Chapter 1159. Recently, the weather in Guangzhou suddenly changed. I caught a cold a few days ago, and it was getting better. However, there were many things going on at home before the new year, so I didn't have a good rest. Today, my cold got worse, and I had a fever. I felt dizzy and my back was strained. The soreness was unbearable, and I felt uncomfortable even when lying down. I really wanted to remove my muscles and tendons to iron them. My lungs had always been bad, and whenever my cough got worse, I was worried that my alveoli would explode. Furthermore, it was really difficult to write a storyline at this stage. According to the outline, the Supercluster Alliance and the World War would be the last in version 40. After that, I would use a few chapters to finish the Pro League before entering the next version update. This would pave the way for the calamity of the Supers or the World Tree War. The general direction was quite clear. However, the problem was that it was very difficult to determine the role of the main character in this current battle. Due to the restrictions of the United Front, there seemed to be very few chances for beyond grade A characters to appear. This wasn't good, and the focus of the description would be off. Furthermore, everyone probably wouldn't like to watch a normal galactic battle without the main character's scenes, so there would be limited meaning in writing it. Thus, I was still thinking about the specific writing method. Should I carefully depict the clash between the players and the two factions, write about the battle between different organizations and different guilds, or just focus on Han Zhao's actions and use the battle between the two factions as a background to quickly pass through? Although the former was more suitable in terms of structure, it was quite bloated. The latter could be reduced to about 100,000 to 200,000 words so that it could enter the later versions as soon as possible. Today, I forced myself to write about 2,000 words, but the effect wasn't good. I deleted all of them after a glance, so I wanted to take a leave to adjust my state and recuperate. Brothers, you all know that other than the 10 days of rest I had during the 17th National Day, I usually only took a day off. However, this time I was really sick, and one day really wasn't enough. I had to take another day off. If I was in good condition on the 18th tomorrow, I would definitely write an update. However, if I didn't get better overnight, I would still have to take a break tomorrow. I just didn't know if the hospital would be able to provide transfusions on the weekend tomorrow. Although I lived a rough life most of the time, I had to take care of my body when I was sick. I hope brothers can understand. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.